Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Savvy. It's myself, George, joined tonight by Chris, and returning to the channel, we have Ryan for a brand new show. And if you haven't already clocked it, I'm doing the intro, which is why you might think this is even weirder. This is the very first episode of Reboots From Hell, the series in which we decide to reboot classic films before Hollywood does it. It's essentially satire with a bit of serious, but disgust at the same time. I need to work on a really catchy phrase for that. I think that's on my to-do list. But no, this is essentially the show where we've got a list of 100 films that me and Chris have picked between us. These are classic films, good films, Oscar-winning films, genre films, a balance, musicals, romances, all that kind of stuff. And we have a randomizer that's going to pick one we do each episode. So we've got the list, but we never know what we're going to cover till the week before. And episode 1, we did cheat. We said, we'll pick one first to begin with. And we went with one of the most iconic films in cinema. As we'll say this in most of the videos, the 100 films are really untouchable. If any one of those decided to get rebooted, we would absolutely kick off. And I think what better way to start than Pulp Fiction? Obviously, coming back, we've got Ryan, who's had the Pulp Fiction poster behind him, who is a big fan of this, which is it's the despair of having to do this. And at the same time, you're having a slight bit of fun doing it. So that's the kind of premise. And I'm going to pass over to Chris for the socials.
Yeah, absolutely. So, going back to bringing Ryan on the show, we remembered he had the poster and we thought, we've got to put Ryan through the ringer today and make him recast and reboot one of his most favorite films of all time. And that's essentially the concept of the entire show. So we're probably going to bring this picture up in just a second again. So this is the cast that we're going to be working with today. These are all the cast members that we're going to be recasting. And this is a good segue into the socials themselves, in that this is a good social experience as well for you to let us know who you'd recast for all of these characters. Now, you can present it in a very nice picture like that if you so wish, or you can obviously just send it into our social medias. It's really good to get engagement with you guys. So obviously you can find us on Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy. Now, this is going to be integral for this show. You can find us on Letterboxd as well, letterboxd.com/Cinema Savvy. On there, you can find the list of the 100 films that we're going to be working from. Obviously, as we get into this show more and we start crossing films off, we will be adding films into the list to keep it up, keep it topped up to 100. So definitely give us a follow on there and follow us on there so you can see from week to week all the films that we go through. And obviously, if you want to pick up any merch as well, we also have the T public link in the description down below should you want to pick up any merch. But yeah, we're absolutely monsters on this show. This was a show that, George came up with. He was like, I've got an idea for a new show. Let's be absolutely horrible and just reboot and retool and rejig all of these classic films, which we know Hollywood are doing. You might even find some films on this list that aren't in our top 100 because maybe Hollywood are already doing the unthinkable, doing what we're doing on the show and already rebooting these films. But so far as I've heard, no one's been rebooting Pulp Fiction yet. But tonight we're going to try and do it. Ryan, what are your thoughts on the concept of rebooting Pulp Fiction as a whole?
Well, I mean, Pulp Fiction is one of those films. Every film student, it's the gateway, isn't it? You start off with somebody like Tarantino. It's so accessible, but it's not standard cinema in that kind of conventional way. He always has something sort of unique that he brings to the table when he does things. So I don't know if I'm speaking for myself, but the first time you watch Pulp Fiction, you're like, oh my God, I've never seen a film like this before. And then you're down the rabbit hole of, the whole wonderful world of cinema. So I think this one, I think it's one of those ones, fingers crossed, would never actually ever be rebooted. But it's one of those, you never know with Hollywood. But this was really hard to do because it's one of those ones, again, you look at that ensemble and you just think, how could you get anybody else to do those roles? They're so iconic. I mean, it just spawned not a cinematic universe per se, but Tarantino's work is so interwoven that it's just really interesting to see where he's come from Pulp Fiction and how it is now. So yeah, it's just
it's one of them where when I was at A-levels, the first year we officially started filming, you leave school, you're 16. Now, I'd never seen Pulp Fiction. That's sort of my highlight again, in that I knew of it. One of my best friends, Lewis, who watched a couple of these videos, his dad had this incredible Pulp Fiction poster growing up. So I always knew Pulp Fiction because of the Uma Thurman poster, and it is his favorite film now. And we're going to be seeing it in the cinema in a couple of weeks, which is going to be exciting. And it was one of them where, as you said, Ryan, you have to watch it, you have to learn it. And it's that here's a non-narrative thing. Now, it's in a Nolan film, so I was very snobby. I have seen this before, but I don't think it was my first Tarantino film. But seeing Pulp Fiction for the first time, I think, is one of them obligatory things for students to do. And it is part of that cast, that ensemble, and we're going to bring it up once more. So these are what we're going to go through, everyone, for you guys at home. So, of course, we're going to have to do a new director, which we're going to start with. Tarantino obviously did this. He had a cameo in the film. So we said, whoever we choose to be the director for this, we're going to make them have that cameo role as well. So the way the concept works is that they're still the same film, it's still the same plot point, it's still the same elements, but it's essentially a recast with the director that could put their spin on it. So we have, of course, Tim Roth playing Pumpkin, Amanda Plummer playing Honey Bunny. I think I've got them in the wrong way around already. I always get the two confused. Christopher Walken as Captain Coons, Maria de Medeiros as Fabian, Bruce Willis as Butch, Ving Rhames as Marcellus Wallace, Uma Thurman as Mia Wallace, Harvey Keitel, of course, as Winston Wolfe, John Travolta as Vincent Vega, and Samuel L. Jackson as Jules Winterfield. And that's the first time I think I've just named the entire cast about the character names in front of me, so there was a bit of nerviness to that. But we're going to start off with the director with each pick. So we've got graphics we're going to keep bringing up, so this is quite a visual one for you guys at home. And I'm going to go first up with mine, director I've chosen, who's actually done a remake of an iconic film before, and I'm hoping it's a lot better this time around because I've gone for Spike Lee.
Oh, okay.
Spike Lee is an actor that I was introduced to with Black Klansman. Well, technically Old Boy, right? But I didn't know it was him till like last year. He's a director I'm new to, and I had a lot of fun catching up with his films, watching some of them, seeing his spin on stuff. And I think the main thing of Pulp Fiction is that it is all about not style, but you need a director that can direct an ensemble cast that can take these individual characters and all that kind of stuff and essentially have fun with it. And you want a director that's going to have, you know how you see videos of Tarantino, right? And everyone jokes saying like, how much cocaine is he on? Or because he's so into the concepts and all that stuff, he's insanity. Spike Lee is kind of like the cooler, slightly more sophisticated sort of Tarantino vibe where you can tell he's really into it, but you know, he wears insane purple suits and he's at all the basketball games, he's doing his adverts, he's in with every celebrity known to man. And I just thought Spike Lee coming in for this to put some of that style onto it. That's who I went for as my sort of first pick. And cameo wise, he's been in roles before, so I'm not too fussed about acting ability, but I can see Spike Lee with the coffee sort of talking to them all and being a bit weird. And you know, it's obviously not the Django Unchained cameo, thank God, that wouldn't work. But yeah.
I think stylistically as well, I guess we're commenting on each other's choices before moving on to the next one. Especially, you know, seeing Black Klansman, and there's elements towards the end of that film where he does play with sort of like the style of that kind of cinema. So we know that he can emulate that kind of style. He can be, comedic whilst also telling a very hard-hitting subject. And I know you mentioned, like Django, and that's probably more a comparison to that. But I could see him easily doing a film like this. I think he could. It would be very different, but its heart would be in the right place, I think, if it was rebooted. And it would be a similar kind of reverence for old style cinema and trying to replicate that in a new, interesting way. So yeah, I think Spike Lee would be a great choice.
I didn't want to say this before, George, but I actually penciled in Spike Lee as the director for me. So I thought I'd say this till we were on air. It's because I had a very similar thought process to yourself, I think. But yeah, Spike Lee, I mean, with Black Klansman, like you said, the way he handles the scope of that film is fantastic. Like, it's just such a serious subject matter, but it's dealt with such a deft sort of lens. It's so incredible to watch. And the movement of the characters and the cast on screen is very reminiscent of sort of a Jackie Brown, Tarantino kind of thing. And it's very, yeah, Spike Lee is such a unique director. I feel bad for him because the Old Boy remake was it was a bit of a nosedive. But I think I listened to him on I think Jonathan Ross had a show and he interviewed him and he had to bring it up, obviously. And Spike was saying, he lost a lot of the control over that film, and the studio were very much interfering with like his vision of what that would be. So I think given him the complete creative control, I think he would do a good job with this film. He's definitely a director that you can see. I mean, he's worked with Samuel L. Jackson before and stuff like that, if we were talking about the original cast. So he's obviously, he's an experienced director. His body of work's just phenomenal. So yeah, I think he's such a strong choice.
Yeah, I think Spike Lee kind of beat us to the punch, didn't he, with Old Boy in terms of Reboots From Hell as they go. Maybe it was like a Gus Van Sant situation with Psycho where he was just like, my thought process is that I wanted to remake this film so that no one else would remake it. It's this very sort of like warped sense of logic with it. So before I get into my pick, I do want to say that I guess this is kind of cheating because this is a pair of directors. So I guess in terms of the role for Quentin Tarantino, pick one of them, or maybe you could rework it where both of them feature into it anyway. I did try and think of a singular director, but it was sort of like my mind kept coming back to these two. So my change of director is the Coen brothers. Now, in terms of, you think of directors in terms of their dialogue and sort of their wacky capers that come to it. And I think that the Coen brothers definitely come to mind, if not for Tarantino. They always seem like a pair of directors that you're always kind of curious what they would make next. And I think they're really versatile in terms of directors as well. Now, Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which is probably my favorite film that they've done, that itself is sort of like 6 individual stories that are so different. Some are very wacky, cartoony, comedic, and then some are a lot more sort of impactful and somber. And I think Tarantino, as a writer, is very much like that too. He can straddle the line between the absurd and almost cartoony, but he can also have like an underlying seriousness to what's going on. And I think Pulp Fiction's a good example of that. You look at some of the other Coen brothers films that they've done as well, such as, Fargo, The Big Lebowski, Brother, Where Art Thou, where you could watch those films. And I always kind of have this with Pulp Fiction as well. If someone said, they haven't seen Pulp Fiction, they said, well, explain the plot to me. I'd have a very hard time explaining the plot of Pulp Fiction because it is kind of a series of random characters and events that kind of come together in this weird jigsaw puzzle. And that's kind of like what The Big Lebowski is to me. It's just kind of a day in the life of these wacky characters. And I don't know, that's why I kept coming back to the Coen brothers. And I think they're the only people that could do it justice. And then, the polar opposite of that is, of course, No Country for Old Men, where you have really intense scenes of tension and anticipation with Javier Bardem's character. And that to me is kind of all the signifiers of what Tarantino is. He can just blend all these different styles together in one complete package that feels unique. So I had to go with the Coen brothers, and I know it's, as I mentioned, it's kind of cheating because Jimmy is just one character. So I don't know, Joel or Ethan, pick. I don't know which one has the most acting experience, but let's be honest, Tarantino himself probably doesn't have much acting experience either when it comes to his cameos in his own films.
I mean, that's wonderful. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just, it's hard with the lag, but I was thinking, when you said you had 2 directors, I was trying to think of a director double team that it would be. I thought maybe you were going to go for sort of like Phil Lord, Chris Miller double team sort of craziness. But then when I saw the Coen brothers, I was like, yeah, that's perfect. This is, I mean, they've already sort of done a remake with True Grit. I know Joel in the past has said he doesn't consider it a remake of the film. He just considers it an alternative to the book sort of thing. But so they're definitely directors that can handle the source material with a lot of credit, I think. And I love that point you said about, Pulp Fiction is almost a day in the life of sort of just like a crazy flowing series of events. And I think with the Coens, like you said, Big Lebowski is one of those things where you keep thinking as you're watching it, like the characters are interfering in a way. And you're like, if they just like stopped interfering, everything would work out for the best, but they just can't help but keep getting and escalating the situation. So I think the Coen brothers have just they have another good visual language as well, don't they? Where it's sort of, I think it's not true with a lot of auteurs, but the way they come about their dialogue and stuff like that. There's so many scenes in, I can think of Coen brothers and Tarantino films where characters are just sitting, talking, but you're drawn in and you're sucked in, and the tension is there, and you're sort of living on the word of every character. So I think they're perfect. It's another really good choice.
I think as well with those two is that when you look at Tarantino films, right, there's very much that. Not that there's room for improv, but that is one hell of a script, and people aren't going to necessarily get away from it. The Coen brothers are that sort of what they say goes. I can't remember what film it was, but someone said like there was like one bit of improv they were allowed to do, and they'd never ever been given improv on a Coen brothers film. It might have been Hail Caesar, I can't remember, but you think about who's got those tight scripts and who then gets the best out of the actors they hire, who doesn't get the casting wrong, who brings in all these people that make the characters who they are. And I think the Coen brothers have that natural balance to go along with them. And I think that's the sort of the fun from it, is that, they could do something similar. And they've got the style. I keep thinking of Ballad of Buster Scruggs, where it is a collection of stories in the same way that Pulp Fiction is, right? It's different things coming together. And although some of them do cross over, they don't necessarily mean anything. And also, like Tarantino, they're not afraid to pull a punch if they have to with something shocking. I think think what's his name, Dudley Dursley, with when his finale in that film. And obviously gets a very sad fate, and it's done comically and deep, and it's that sort of Tarantino's. They're kind of like similar but so different to Tarantino, aren't they? Like,
I think they're drier. I think in terms of their humor to Tarantino, maybe. I think it's difficult to kind of qualify it. But I want to stress this as well. None of us know what each other's picked, so this is very interesting. Maybe we'll have some crossovers down the line. I don't think we are in terms of director, but Ryan, I'm interested to hear what you've picked as well, because I know that you mentioned you had Spike Lee penciled in, but who was the one that you ended up going with?
Well, who I've actually settled on is Vince Gilligan of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Okay.
And the reason I've chosen this is there are so many parallels in Better Call Saul and homages to Pulp Fiction. As sort of like, it's almost like it's his gospel in a little way. Like there's so many phenomenal, like Jesse's arc is he has the drug overdose arc like Mia with the woman he's with. I think it's in season 2 or 3. I can't remember, but yeah. And there's so many other parallels between their work, and I think Vince Gilligan as well. He has that. I don't know if he's done much in regards to film, but like the way he can. The way he brings the ensemble cast together is just fantastic. And I just thought it'd be really interesting to see what he would do with it, because, like I said, it seems to be like a film that he's obviously very, very well versed with. So I think having somebody like him at the helm, who's already paid homage to it so many times, I wonder how he would cope actually if he was to step up and actually create this film himself.
I think it'd be great. I think Breaking Bad is one of the. I've not seen Better Call Saul. I think it's the first couple of episodes, but I'm waiting for it to finish to do the ultimate. It's not. Yeah. I guess is it a trilogy if you include the film?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of them where I've never clocked it until you've just said that there are parallels with them, and then you look at some of those names that he helped. In the same way that you get into a Tarantino film, right? And he brought back John Travolta's career. He kind of really kickstarted Sam Jackson's, and Vince Gilligan. He completely reinvented. Oh my God, have I forgotten Walter White? Bryan Cranston. Yeah, and he gave us Aaron Paul and so many others, and it's one of them really fascinating sort of film directors, filmmakers, and I think when you see them speak about him, it is only a high regard. There's no aggro, there's no drama. It's they will just do whatever he wants them to do, and they just want to work with him. And I think that's the big thing with the sort of Tarantino film is that you're in for who's making it, not necessarily the actors who also appear.
Yeah, I was really. I was just going to say I was really dubious about the idea of a spin-off from Breaking Bad, but I mean I've not finished Better Call Saul. I mean I know it's not a finished product yet. I've still got the last sort of release season to watch, but the way he's handled it has been fantastic and really dignified. I was worried it was going to be a sort of a cash grab spin-off, and it was going to have like little cameos of Walter and Jesse every 5 minutes and stuff like that to carry it. But from what has been established so far, it's such a it's very much Breaking Bad, but it's more of a slow burn Breaking Bad, and Breaking Bad isn't exactly explosive at all times anyway. So yeah, I think the way he's handled a spin-off, I think it'd be really interesting to see him handle a remake. Sorry, Chris, I know you were gonna.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I have seen all of Breaking Bad. Not Breaking Bad, sorry. Better Call Saul. I'm not gonna give anything away because I know you guys haven't caught up with it yet. But the last season 5, was tremendous. In many ways, I think there are some episodes in that might even rival the highest of highs from Breaking Bad, even in terms of its style. And I could absolutely see that. I would have never have thought of him in A Month of Sundays, that director. But now you've mentioned that, I could see that. And I think in terms of, you mentioned, Ryan, the parallels between the characters with the Mia character, and I don't think just the Mia character. I think you have the characters of Gus and these drug lords, these crime lords that you could sort of like carry over to. You could see him writing and directing those kind of characters when you get to like a Marcellus Wallace kind of character, or the likable rogues essentially that are on paper horrible people when you get to John Travolta and Samuel Jackson's characters, but there's an inherent just camaraderie between the two, and the way that they just sort of talk to each other and just like the natural back and forth. Yeah, I think that would be a really good fit. And, you see that across all of Breaking Bad and even Better Call Saul as well. These morally grey people, or people that are absolutely horrible, committing these horrible crimes, but you can't help but like them as well. And I think that's intrinsic to Tarantino as well, that you do have so many characters like that, not just pertaining to Pulp Fiction, but pretty much all of his films as well. So no, I think that's a great choice.
Yeah, they'll have these redemptive arcs, don't they? So sorry, George. They Jesse. There's an episode where he saves a kid from like a drug-addled family, doesn't he? The dad's head gets crushed under something, and he takes the kid away from the situation and stuff. And although he's not like a perfect guy, there are opportunities for these characters to redeem themselves, and it's very similar, like you said about Jules and And oh my goodness, Jules and Vincent, they're not always, the good guys, but in some scenarios they do the right thing. So yeah.
Definitely. What I was going to say with that, I think it just works out perfectly. We've got a couple of comments from Carl. Carl, we're not going to bring them up yet, just because what I guess will be a fun thing to do when we're on that character or that director or whatnot. We'll bring up everyone at home. So comment in order, or whenever they pop up, we'll bring them up for each person. But I guess we can move on from the directors. Directors can be one of the big ones. We're going to move on to the cast now. Some of these will be shorter than the others. For example, first up is Pumpkin, played by Tim Roth. I've gone with Robert Pattinson. I think this is perfection. I know this is really arrogant of myself. Rob Pattinson is amazing. If you'd have told me 5 years ago this guy would be Batman, he would be doing these incredible indie films, and he'd be one of the most fascinating, unique actors on the planet, I'd have probably thought you're just an insane Twilight fan. Robert Pattinson is truly, I think, going to be not generational. It sounds really rude. He's going to win an Oscar in the next 10 years. He's one of those actors now that he's been able to do the big franchises, i.e., Twilight. I guess you can say Harry Potter, but he's ended up afterwards, settling back, doing those indie films, working his way approaches to his work, and sorry,
yeah,
sorry, I say his work, I think, is starting to really show, and that's why he ended up in a Nolan film. He's going to be Batman. He's done the indie films where the directors are coming to him to take part in these roles, and I just think if you're taking on that Tim Roth character, you want someone. I don't want to be ageist, but I think because Tim Roth's obviously English, isn't he? And you kind of want that. Who's that sort of early to mid 30s that he's got a bit of a charm to him, but at the same time he's probably a bit of a psycho on the inside. I present to you The Lighthouse, Rob Pattinson. So. He's my pick, and this is the first episode, right? We're not going to have the same cast every time, but I've got a lot of my favorites in here, just as a first off. But Robert Pattinson in a Hawaiian shirt, he can pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, I love Robert Pattinson. I know that we haven't got to Batman yet, but judging from the trailer, I think he's going to do it justice. I think Tenet's probably like the most recent thing I've seen him in. He's tremendous. He doesn't get credit where credit's due. I think he has grown into a fantastic actor. Obviously, you've got that British link as well with Tim Roth's character and Robert Pattinson, so I could see that working. But obviously, I can't talk too much about Robert Pattinson until we get to the next one with Honey Bunny to see who you've paired him up against. But no, on paper for those short scenes, I could absolutely see him doing that. I think he could bring the intensity. We've seen that in The Lighthouse. And he also kind of looks unassuming. If you just saw him in a booth in a cafe, you wouldn't think anything of it. So there is that sort of like homely quality to him, which I think is integral to that pairing at the beginning of that film, that they would suddenly then do something so unexpected, like robbing a diner.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good pick. He's just definitely, like you said, Joe, he's on a massive upward trajectory. He spent his time sort of, I wouldn't say slaving away, but working in a franchise is very different. And but what it's done is it's freed him up, and now he can take on roles that are a bit more risky, or that he's not guaranteed to sort of see a return on that, and he gets to sort of expand his filmography and like things. Yeah, his performance in The Lighthouse obviously fantastic. So yeah, he has that level, like you said, he's got that sort of calm demeanor, I guess, but there's that level of sort of unhingedness beneath him that you can definitely see coming to fruition. Yeah, it's a really good pick for that. Really good.
Okay, so we get on to mine now. This might be quite reactionary to sort of like current TV shows and everything, but my choice for the cast of Pumpkin, so Tim Roth's character, I've got Tom Hiddleston. Now, in those pictures, they kind of look similar in the face, just a little bit, at least from that picture. So obviously Loki's a massive thing at the moment, but I think that, obviously there's the Britishness between the two. That was it was what actors are sort of around this age, like you mentioned, like the early 30s. That was like my first parameter. And then, I ultimately wanted to try and go for a British actor if I could. But I just, like we talk about like the unhinged thing. And I swear, if I'm remembering rightly, in Pulp Fiction, there's moments where, Tim Roth's talking to his wife at the table and he has like this kind of manic grin to his face. Well, Tom Hiddleston has that in spades, especially as Loki. And we see that in the Loki TV show so far. I think he can do it. I think he can bring that level of intensity. I guess when we get onto it, when I get onto who I've paired him up with, I think that the match would probably work. It'd be a very different match, I think, from the match that we get in the original Pulp Fiction film. But I mean, we are rebooting it, so there are going to be some differences. I just think he has that charming quality again, kind of like what we mentioned with Robert Pattinson, but there is that kind of unsettling thing to him. I think in terms of the voice as well, it kind of, I don't know, there was like, it kind of straddled the line between Tim Roth to me and Tom Hiddleston when I was imagining the voice and how that scene would play out. So might be an easy choice. It might be a bit reactionary to things that are going on at the moment, but that might be a kind of recurring pattern because I'm very unoriginal when it comes to my recastings for most of these people. But yeah, Tom Hiddleston.
Did you want to go, George? Or?
Do you want to go? We'll keep it clockwise. Sorry, it's always
right. Yeah, sorry.
If you after Chris, we'll just round it off perfectly.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a really interesting choice. I mean, he's such a Machiavellian sort of character in Loki, and I think it works. It plays into it perfectly because Tim Roth, like you said, they've got the British connection between them, but Tim Roth in those scenes, he's like you said, I think you said it, you summed it up, he seems homely and stuff, and he just seems like, he's like a down-to-earth sort of guy, and then all of a sudden they're pulling out guns and standing on top of a table. And I just think it's so funny to go from that sort of civilized, sipping coffee, quick talking to everyone's suddenly up in arms. He's got his gun and they're on the table. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's really reminiscent of sort of his performance as Loki, I guess, because Loki's sort of, he can come across as sort of civilized and very, calm and present, and then he just has this sort of wild card sort of thing. He just pulls a scheme out, and it seems so unhinged, but he's obviously got a plan and he's obviously following it through. So yeah, it's another solid pick.
It's when you said the smile and you just click. It's like no one can do that sort of grin. And I know it's like a Lokiism now, I guess we keep saying with him, but it is very much Tom Hiddleston can switch that at the moment it's needed. And you can see that sort of, not rage side of him, but when he's, I can see him getting up on the table with a gun, threatening people and all that. And then you've got to think other scenes when he's getting the humbling from the others. Yeah. We can see that he can do that side perfectly. So I think that's a pretty inspired choice.
I think the grin kicks in, is like, garçon, coffee. And she comes and she goes like, garçon means boy. And he just kind of stares at her like, you bitch. And it's like this grin on his face. And that was the moment that just sort of like clicked with me that it needs to be a character. It needs to be an actor that can have like a really chilling grin. So, I
like to think that that's the reason they actually held the joint up. I like to think they were just there for a coffee. And then after that interaction, he was like, what, sod this.
Right, so Ryan, who have you gone for Pumpkin?
Yeah, I've not gone for the British connection, but I've sort of taken a similar thought process to you guys. I've gone for John Hamm based on two roles. His big role as Don Draper in Mad Men. I mean, you can see one of the reasons I've picked it straight away. That smile, that grin is very sort of Tim Roth sitting in the canteen, and also his other role in Baby Driver as well. He plays that sort of really cool elderly brother role to Ansel Elgort's character, and then he becomes very psychopathic as the sort of film winds down and he sort of loses people. So I think, John Hamm, he's has such a tremendous range, and it's baffling to me that he's not sort of a huge A-list actor who's been in, a million things. He's sort of, his career is very strange to me, but I love it because he's just sort of, like what every role he does, he's very sort of dignified in his approach to it, but I think he always pulls it off masterfully. And I just think, I know he doesn't have a similar sort of look, maybe, or a screen presence as oh my goodness, what's his name? Tim Roth. But I think the similarities are that, like you guys just said as well, when he's being humbled by Samuel L. Jackson later in the film, there are scenes within Mad Men or scenes within Baby Driver where he's on the back foot and he's backpedaling and he's sort of having to accept that he's not, the lead. He's taking that sort of second seat. And when he's in scenes where he's not necessarily controlling the scene, his reaction and his facial expressions are just fantastic. And when I was watching the film again for this, Tim Roth just does such a fantastic job when he's being humbled by Samuel L. Jackson and he sits him down and he's got him, hands on the table where he can see them and stuff. And I just thought, I could just see almost elements of like how John Hamm would approach that role in such a similar way. So that's why I've gone for that.
I think John Hamm's so likable as well. Like, yeah, I'm trying to think of a film, right? And I'm not going to sit here and sort of mock the Baby Driver cast, but pretty much all that cast, like most of them have had problems, to put it as an understatement, in the last like couple of years. And like John Hamm, I think, is like one of two or three that's come out unscathed. And you kind of sit there thinking, saying like, well, obviously John Hamm's not doing anything wrong because he's just wonderful. And yet, I've not seen Mad Men. It is on that TV list. I think I've got the Americans too. Then Mad Men's been flirting around at the top for a while, but he could do it, right? The thing is, he's a very good actor, and you are right. He is one of those where you see those actors that have that TV boom, where they get their own show, they get big off that. But John Hamm's not had that like cliche of got the A-lister stuff, got that reputation, and I think everyone that knows him loves him. But there aren't enough casual people that don't know him because they've not seen something, and I think it'll happen at some point. I love him, even in stuff like Parks and Rec when he's got cameos in that. He's amazing, but I'm never going to say no to more John Hamm.
Yeah, no, I love John Hamm. Now, I haven't seen Mad Men, so I can't comment on his performance in that. It's interesting that you mentioned Baby Driver, because maybe when we get down the list, you might see some inspiration from Baby Driver that I've taken for some of my casting as well. I think that's, the style of that film is quite intrinsic to very Tarantino-esque in terms of its editing and the music and everything. And speaking of that kind of Tarantino link, I think this was a film when it came out I absolutely loved. I must admit I haven't gone back to it. I'd quite like to. The 2018 film directed by Drew Goddard, Bad Times at the El Royale, which felt very much like it was in the guise of a Tarantino film, like it was trying to be one. Didn't quite hit the heights of a Tarantino film, but John Hamm was in that too. And I think he does have that kind of, he is quite an imposing guy, like he is a striking guy when you see him, but I think he can play that sort of homely quality to him. And you kind of see that in Baby Driver as well, that he's inherently a good guy that's kind of gone bad and, wants to live this life of crime, essentially, this high octane lifestyle. So no, I think that's a really good fit. I could absolutely see that. I think it'd be a very different portrayal of Tim Roth's character, but different isn't bad when you're rebooting the classic, right?
Exactly. That being said, we're gonna find out who everyone else has picked for their counterparts. So in the role of Honey Bunny, I've put Maya Hawke. This is very meta. This was almost my Mia Wallace. I was sitting there thinking, and it's Uma Thurman's daughter, and we've seen her in a Tarantino film, and I thought, because of Rob Pattinson, I need someone that could be unhinged, and we get little bits of it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I think she's got a big career, but I thought if you pair them up together, I think the chemistry could. Rob Pattinson's got chemistry with everyone, as proven in his last couple of films, and I think Maya Hawke is going to be a massive star, but I could see her doing it. I've got another choice for Mia Wallace, which is obviously why, but I could see her at the table screaming with the gun, with all of it, but also them two as a couple. I see them as a couple. You could imagine them going out for coffee one morning and then robbing somewhere together. So that was my choice, more meta than anything, reference to the past and whatnot. But that was my pick.
I think that's really interesting, because I know that you were mentioning the idea of maybe introducing her, and the thought did cross my mind as well, because she's a fantastic actress. I've only seen her, granted, in Stranger Things season 3 and the brief cameo that she has in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I thought itself was a nice cameo from Tarantino to put her in there. I think that'd be great, and I think it'd be an interesting pairing between the two, but I know for a fact that she could absolutely do it. And I think if you were going to reboot it, it's nice to dip your toe in, like what you remember from the original. You have Uma Thurman, now you have a daughter. So yeah, I think that would be a nice continuation. Before we continue, we have had a request from Carl. I don't know if it's a request or more of a question. He's asked us, are there any songs you'd change on the soundtrack? Or is it too iconic? We haven't prepared any retooling of songs. Maybe we'll have a think towards the end. I do feel very on the spot with that now, and I'm not going to lie, I can't think of any music that I'd change in it. Maybe when we get to the end, but in terms of the casting for Honey Bunny, I think that's a really good choice.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like yourself, Chris, I've only really seen her in Stranger Things, but she handled that role superbly. And the scene where they get injected with the truth serum, she has that level of sort of that sort of unhinged, sort of not psychopathic, but she comes across, she could do that high octane. You could absolutely see her with the gun, waving it around, pointing it between Samuel L. Jackson and what's his face, John Travolta. But yeah, I think it's a really, really solid pick, and I do love the meta reference, because that feels exactly like something that Tarantino would do. I guess he did to a degree in Once Upon a Time, but yeah, it's very on brand, I think, to cast it.
Awesome. So we get to my one then. So this is very different. So when you get the pictures side by side, I don't mean that in a horrible way. So my recasting of Honey Bunny, I had to think who I'd pair up with Tom Hiddleston. So I've gone for Scarlett Johansson as Honey Bunny. Now, sort of like the entire antithesis of why I've picked her for this role is based on her performance pretty much solely from Marriage Story. An actress that has so much range, because if you think of the character of Honey Bunny, yes, she does have these moments of, complete zaniness and just manic quality to her. You think of that intro scene where she's just screaming her lungs out in the intro, but she does have a vulnerability to her. And I was trying to think of an actress that could do both. Now, granted, any actress out there could probably do both. That's why they're actresses, that's why they're in the business. But from Marriage Story, you know, there are those moments where she is shouting and she is very passionate about what she's talking about. And, you know, we know she can do action as well. She can be a badass. And she, you know, I think she'd be quite a good fit for that sort of like Bonnie and Clyde situation that the film opens and closes with. But it's that vulnerability I was looking for. And it's almost like the character of Funny Bunny almost regresses, almost like quite childlike in that moment where the reality kind of sets in. She says, like, you know, I gotta go pee, I want to go home. And it's this very, you feel very sympathetic for the character there. And I could see Scarlett Johansson doing that very well. I think it'd be a good match between her and Tom Hiddleston on screen. I think it'd be a very different kind of take on that pairing. You know, you look at Tim Roth and I forgot her name, sorry, Amanda Plummer. They do look very unassuming when you look at them. They just look very homely. They look very, dare I say, default. I don't mean that in like a horrible way, but if they were in a crowd, they wouldn't really stand out. I think this would be, if you had Hiddleston and Scarlett Johansson together, they'd be sort of like the very photogenic, wouldn't put a foot out of line, idyllic kind of family, idyllic, you know, photogenic couple. But then they'd still, you know, flip the tables and like be this crazy couple together. So I think she could do it. I mean, Scarlett Johansson's just a tremendous actress. I think she has quite a lot of range, more than what a lot of people give her credit for. So that's why I went for Honey Bunny. I don't know if I'm completely set. In fact, casting, that was the one that I was kind of iffy on down to the wire, but nonetheless, Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good pick. I think, yeah, she pairs wonderfully with Tom Hiddleston. You can absolutely see them together as a couple. It's very picturesque, them sitting in a diner. When you talked about her vulnerability, the first role that came to my mind, other than Marriage Story, was Lost in Translation. Yeah. Obviously, she was much younger then, but that's the exact sort of vulnerability that the character sort of has when she sort of realizes that they're not in control of the situation in the diner and that Samuel L. Jackson's character is. She sort of, when he tells Vincent to shut up, she sort of parrots him, very childlike quality. She's like, shut up. You know, she's very, you can see all of a sudden she's scared. But yeah, I think, yeah, she has a very underrated range, I think, like you just said. And I think it's, yeah, really interesting pick. I think you've paired the two of them perfectly as well. I could see them. Have they ever been a couple on screen? I can't, you know.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
I think they have, but I could totally see it, especially if they were doing a sort of period piece. I think they'd look fantastic together for that.
I remember him calling her Mewling Quim, and I need to get that out there in the Avengers.
Oh, of course,
I think that'd be great. The thing with Scarlett Johansson is that we know she's a fantastic actress, and I think because obviously she's done the A-list side, the Marvel stuff, she's been the highest paid actress like X amount of years in a row. But then we do get that side to it. Even stuff like Jojo Rabbit when she's in the maternal mode, when we see how wonderful actress she is, and I could see her, and I'd quite like to see her now, not in more edgy roles because she takes on really unique stuff, but I'd kind of like to see her be a bit more unhinged because we've not really seen that. We do see sort of paint by the numbers, or
I think if you've seen Under the Skin, I think that's one of my favorite films. But I think that's her hands down best performance. I won't spoil it in case you've not seen it, but that's a very, very sort of psychopathic and unhinged sort of I don't know, the role, and she handles it perfectly. Yeah, so her range is, again, it's just fantastic.
Absolutely. So Ryan, who's completing your pairing?
Sort of I don't know, there's another bit of metatextuality with what George has picked, because I've picked somebody who's in Stranger Things as well, but I've picked Winona Ryder based on sort of her performance. Because when you see her as sort of the vulnerable mother in Stranger Things, she has that sort of loose hysteria to her character. But I think her and John Hamm would look phenomenal together on screen. I think they're just, both of them look so charming and innocent. And then to have the tables turned and then be holding up people at gunpoint, I just think would be fantastic. She has a very sort of warm quality to her performance. But like I said, like in Stranger Things, you sort of see that she can bring it to, you know, another sort of level. And that loose hysteria sort of quality, when Will's gone missing in like the first season, she's very edgy and shaky, and that's exactly how I see Yolanda in that scene. You know, as soon as she's not in control, she's very edgy and shaky, and she's gone from sort of being a subdued, warm character to sort of, you know, she's very fearful. So I think that's why I've picked her. And again, I think her and John Hamm, they both just have this facial quality that I find really interesting. They both have a very, like, the smile, the John Hamm smile. I think Winona Ryder's got sort of like the female version of that to a degree, very sort of unassuming and lovely, but there's a deeper quality to it.
No, definitely. I have seen your list because obviously I did the edits, and when he sent it to me, that was the one straight away I was like, oh my, like John Hamm and Winona Ryder, because as you said, the age thing a little bit older, but those two as an on-screen couple would, I just think, kill any scene they're in. They'd be so good together. And that's exactly what I thought. I've not really seen much she's done but Alien, but she's the best thing in Stranger Things as far as I'm concerned. Her and David Harbour together, and season 1 especially. That's when I thought, okay, this is insane, and I think it's perfect.
I did actually consider David Harbour, just to interject, sorry. I did actually consider him as the counterpart, but I thought that might just be too on the nose, a bit too obvious, so I thought I had to mix it up. Sorry, Chris.
And that's a great pairing too, as like a side note in Stranger Things. Like, she's tremendous in it. I love Winona Ryder. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for Winona Ryder, and again, this was a role when she was very young, but sort of that unhinged quality. Heathers, which I think is a great film, and she's tremendous in. And you're right, she has always had that sort of like underlying unhinged quality to her, but she also brings a warmth, and I think even still can bring very much that vulnerable, childlike kind of side to her, which we see in Stranger Things and other such things that she's in. I'm trying to remember how she was in Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola movie, and I think most people would say not good, but I can't remember if she was unhinged in that or how she played that. But she's done a lot of roles, and that I think kind of like slip under the radar a lot. But and in terms of just how the couple would look on screen together, I think it's a tremendous fit.
I think as well with Winona Ryder, what you were just sort of saying, with Tarantino, he sort of gets, like you're saying with John Travolta, he sort of brings actors back, whereas I think her role in Stranger Things has sort of brought her back to sort of the front line of people's people paying attention to her as an actress. Not that she'd ever like sort of truly disappeared, but I'm struggling to think of a bigger role she sort of had recently. And then when she was in Stranger Things, it was almost like she was catapulted right back to the forefront of being on people's radar again. So I think that's another reason I've tried to pick her, because she's another one where she sort of had a career, and then maybe it's stalled, or maybe she's sort of just not really been in anything for a while. Then all of a sudden she's had a career revitalized by this really standout performance. So
yeah, and I think she's the best thing in that too. That kind of caps off the first pairing. We're moving on to the golden watchster, I guess we can say right now, and no better way to start off. I didn't even know this was his name until like a week ago. That's how sort of low cam. And we're recasting Captain Coons to begin with, played by the incredible Christopher Walken. Maybe his best one-scene appearance, up there with True Romance. And I've gone for one of my all-time favorites for this. I've gone for Christian Bale. It's one of those roles. Let's get it to the point. Nobody can do that except Christopher Walken. Let's make that 1,000,000% clear. He is, and I remember the first time I watched that scene still, and the moment he mentioned about it again up his ass, I was like, what? Who can pull that off? Like, who can do it in such a serious undertone? And this is what I was really trying to approach. Like, which actor has that modern day like intensity that, not necessarily unhinged, but who can probably do that scene as serious as they can, and you're kind of intimidated and respectful at the same time. And I just thought Christian Bale, like, it's standing out that there are many great actors, that method actors, intense actors, whatever you want to say, but Christian Bale could do it. There's a kind of fear with how casual he comes across in the film, and I just had to go to him. It was out of him and a couple of others, and I was trying to weigh the ages. Some worked, some didn't. I was just trying to match. But the moment Christian Bale came in, I thought, you know what, that's it. And also, if anyone interrupted him on set when he was trying to do the speech, then we all get another glorious video. So I'd very much like to see Christian Bale as Captain Coons.
I was going to say Christopher Walken's a very unhinged actor, but his performance is very restrained as Christopher Walken roles go. So I was going to say Christian Bale would be, if you want an unhinged actor, absolutely go for Christian Bale based on that Terminator Salvation rant. But yeah, and I think Walken, Christian Bale as an actor, is very dignified, and a lot of his other roles as well in some of like his dramatic pieces he's outstanding in. So I think he could bring, he's kind of consoling the kid at the start. He's telling him this story of, him and his dad, and he's, very approachable and sort of like mild-mannered. And I think that Christian Bale could do that. And then we know that he's taken a step into comedy as well with Thor, Love and Thunder. Thor, Love and Thunder, isn't it? So he can definitely do that as well. The question is, would he do the Batman voice? Would he kind of have that low, raspy voice when he's talking under his breath? Who knows? But if it was going to be a one and done, I think Christian Bale would make it a memorable scene, as indeed Christopher Walken did when he did his scene.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much to add to that you guys haven't already said. That when I saw that, I laughed, and I didn't laugh in like a disrespectful way. I just laughed because I was like, yeah, he could do it, because Christian Bale, any sort of role that gets put in front of him, he's a chameleon. He just like, what was the one? he lost a ton of weight for. Somebody help me. There was a role he had. I can't remember which film it was, and he just went straight for it, and he just.
Oh, it was
lost
The Machinist, I think, wasn't it?
I think, yeah. And then he's had other roles. He's unrecognizable at points, and I think if anybody, Christopher Walken obviously in Pulp Fiction, it's like he's in that one scene and he just steals it. Like for me and my friends, we would reference that watch thing all the time because it just comes out of left field. It's so funny because it's this lovely, touching story about how he's being handed down this watch and he's hidden it up his ass. And I could just imagine Christian Bale doing that, and I just think that just is very much on key with the original sort of tone of that scene. Yeah, it's a very good pick.
And we know that it's an impossible act to follow as well, just with like the pauses and the cadence that Christopher Walken talks in. But we're still doing it anyway. This is the whole concept of the show, that we have to kind of make the best of it. So for my pick, I've gone with a deep cut Deer Hunter reference on this one. Now, maybe the ages don't match on this one, but I'm going for it anyway. Captain Coons, I'm going with Robert De Niro. I mean, digital de-aging technology exists. We've all watched The Irishman. We know that they could possibly do that. But I think if you look at Christopher Walken and indeed Robert De Niro's career, it's kind of almost gone down the same path, that you have these actors that, featured in films together, were very highly respected, some very intense, dramatic performances that they both turned in over the years, especially in sort of like their 70s era, I think was definitely the highlight for both of these actors. And then they've kind of went into comedy, like both of them, whether it be cameos or, they almost became sort of like parodies of themselves. And I think Robert De Niro, probably more so than Christopher Walken's, kind of pulled it back with, as I mentioned, like his role in The Irishman, and we know that he still has the caliber to do that. But I just think because he has featured in a Tarantino film before, Jackie Brown, he's in that film. Whether you think he's good or not in that film, that's a different topic for another time. But I think he's got the chops to do it. He brings that intensity. I think he'd bring sort of like that warmth as an actor that you could sort of like hang on his every word as he's telling this story. You could see him playing a kind of army-like character, because obviously he has done in his previous career, but because of his age as well, I think it would bring that sort of reverence to him, that he's a man of authority and a man of rank. And then going into this story with Robert De Niro talking about hiding a watch up his ass, I think that would be quite funny. I really just went with this because of Deer Hunter, essentially. And as I mentioned, the ages probably don't match, but I think it'd still be... I'd still find it fun if Robert De Niro did that. Maybe not have sort of like the star power that Walken did, but would still be a bit different.
Yeah, that's I actually considered De Niro for another role. I haven't actually picked him for another role, but I do consider him for another role later in the film, which we'll reveal when we get there. But almost for similar reasons as to what you've done here, he's sort of almost a parody of himself in his later career and his comedy roles in Meet the Parents he's in, I think, and stuff like that. And but when you consider, his more serious stuff as well, like you said, Christopher Walken has a cadence to him and a demeanor. And I think De Niro as well, at one time, he was the actor, he would blend into any film or any scene. I think he could absolutely do it. I think Walken's almost irreplaceable just for the absurdity of that monologue. But De Niro is a very strong shout to do it.
I'm just imagining De Niro like doing the facial expressions as well. Like, when he does that thing and when he's like, he pulls the face up. You could just imagine him like not just like the talking, but that side of it. And I think he could do it. He's still got it in him when he wants to do it. And I think that's what's so frustrating with him, that we get something amazing like The Irishman, and then we get what was it, like Bad Grandpa or something like that. Like the rest of it. Like,
of course, you have Joker though as well, right? Like he was great in Joker for like the bit part he was in.
I think it's on brand again with Tarantino bringing back actors maybe who haven't done a sort of a serious film and then coming back to do one again. I think just showing that they can still bring it when they need to.
No, definitely.
We've also got Carl, who's mentioned he's thrown his 2 cents in for Captain Coons. I think this is going to please George for sure. What about Willem Dafoe as Coons? Yeah, sure. I've seen Willem Dafoe. Oh God, what was that film that came out at London Film Festival?
Lighthouse, when he was starting.
No, the one after where he does that crazy dance routine, and it's just like very avant-garde and crazy. Oh God!
It was named after like a town or city, wasn't it?
I can't remember what it was called. Yeah, it was like a place name as the film, but absolute manic. He could absolutely do it. I'd love to. Get Willem Dafoe in anything.
I mean, Willem Dafoe's role in the Florida Project is just a standout role for me in recent years. He really steals that film. I mean, that's a good good choice for the Christopher Walken role as well.
Definitely. And Ryan, who have you gone for?
Who have I gone for? I have gone for Matthew McConaughey for this one. I think what Matthew McConaughey brings is, I think I think it's his accent and the way he would. I could see him with that, that southern drawl. And when I was watching it, I thought the only way I would approach this role is if somebody would do it the same as Walken, but with a different sort of cadence and accent. And I thought Matthew McConaughey in the modern cinema, he's got one of the most iconic deliveries and voices and the way he goes about it, and the fact that it's just a one scene, one and done monologue. And I just think, Matthew McConaughey, he looks very gaunt, which sort of plays into sort of maybe the veteran role. But I mean, we've seen him in True Detective just pull off crazy, long, continuous takes and stuff like that. So I think it would just fall as second nature to him as well. But mostly this one is just the way he delivers lines, and I could see I could see him doing a really good job, to be honest, because Christopher Walken, like we keep saying, is just, the way he did it and his cadence and accent is perfect for it. So I thought the only way to do it would be to almost to satirize it in a way where you're thinking to sort of set it apart and be different, but keep it tonally the same. I think Matthew McConaughey would just be really funny to see do it.
I think with McConaughey as well, if anyone's seen Beach Bum, I just wanted to double check that was the name for it. He is amazing. And we've seen him do serious, we've seen him do comedy. He went for that lull of before we got, what do they call it? Was it the McConaissance? They renamed the Renaissance, didn't they, to McConaughey? And I think in that scene, it's the voice. You get the voice, and you could just imagine, like, even his movement across the screen. And as you are right, you want someone that's gonna sort of satirize himself. And you can pick anywhere. When you get people like, I want Sam Jackson to be my like Alexa voice. You could imagine a McConaughey one, and I think in that scene, McConaughey would. Again, it's the purpose of the role. It's meant to steal the entire film, and I think he does it.
I think that's a tremendous choice. I can't do a McConaughey. I wish I could do a McConaughey. I can't do a McConaughey. I can picture the voice. I was saying that's tremendous. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you've got stuff like where he has these very thought-provoking and, idealistic kind of monologues that he has in something like Interstellar, and then you go to Wolf of Wall Street, where also a film where he has very few scenes but has so much of an impact on it. Even Scorsese, in terms of the tone of that film, very Tarantino-esque, I would say. Yeah, absolutely tremendous. 100%. Yeah, McConaughey. And this is the sad thing now, like, doing this show, we might also uncover some great ideas that it's so intriguing that we kind of want to see it too. That's one of them for me. So yeah, definitely.
Like you just said as well, like the Wolf of Wall Street role, he gets DiCaprio, who is godly in that film, to just sort of have to sit there and be in awe of that scene because of the way he does it, just the beating on his chest, it's just so funny. I think he's underrated in terms of his comedic performances. So yeah.
Yeah, they get thrown under a bus because of the ramps. I remember him in Tropic Thunder as well, where he was like the loyal agent, which was great as well.
George, we've done something right. We've just had a comment from Carl. I want to see this film now. Yeah, absolutely. This is what I was saying. What have we done? We're monsters.
If the wrong person is watching this, who is some like elitist agent, please no. But yes, if you credit us,
send us a check in the mail. Thank you.
I just want to say, if it ever happens, there will be a lawsuit.
and Tarantino is going to put like a horse's head in each of our houses, and that's exactly how that part of it's going to do. Going on to a character now, which I think might be the shortest one on the show, right? Fabien.
Is it safe to say our least favorite, all of our collective least favorite character in the film Pulp Fiction?
This is my problem. So I've tried to spice it up. I've gone from Alexandra to Dario, and obviously, I guess you could also say another true detective character. Listen, Fabien's a character that all I think of is the Oza lies. I think I texted this to you around that. I can't put Meza Oza in the film, so I'm just trying to think of an actress that had those like bright eyes, that's like all innocent, and who's kind of there, like I didn't like the original actress. I don't know if it's the script. I don't know if it's the performance. I don't know if that was intentional by Tarantino. I just think she's always been the character that stood out. Like who's Ed, baby? I'm like, just please go away. Run, Butch, run. But I thought, okay, get to Dario in. I think she's an underrated actress. I remember mainly for Percy Jackson, but she's done other roles over the years, but very much it's all in the eyes for me. Nothing more I can add in truth. That was like it was one of the harder ones, because like, this was the one character where I went with the approach like, could I improve this? I don't know.
This is going to be even shorter for me because I've just done a quick Wikipedia search as to what I may have seen her in. I recognize the name. I think the only thing I've seen her in is she was in one episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in 2012. I'll be damned if I can remember which episode that was and who she played. Sure, from appearance standpoint, then yeah, honestly, I haven't seen her in anything substantial, so I can't really comment on her acting ability. But she is a bit part character, so yeah. I mean, again, it's going to be like the pairing. But even the pairing in Pulp Fiction felt very weird and out of character. Like, she never seemed like a person that Butch would go for. But hey, what do I know? I didn't write the damn film.
I think, Chris, if you've seen Always Sunny, she's the episode where Charlie and Dee are in a car crash and they fall in love with the people in the other car. And she's the woman that Charlie falls in love with.
Oh, okay.
And I think actually, George, that's a little bit of a masterstroke because in that episode, she's very much she doesn't realize she's being strung along, and she's just this character that has no ulterior motive, is who she says she is. But and then when she gets sort of ghosted at the end by Charlie, you feel a bit bad for her. So I think if anything, you would make this character a bit more empathetic with her casting. Yeah, I mean, I think this is such a difficult character to recast because I don't think it through any fault of the actress necessarily, but I don't know what it is about the scripting or the way it's written, but she doesn't seem to. Every time you speak about the film, she does seem to catch a lot of flack for this film, like rightly or wrongly, I don't know, but I just feel bad for her because the scenes she's in seem to be sort of the worst sort of paced scenes in the film. So I feel like in a film where you've got fast talking characters and stuff, and then you have this sort of slow pseudo romance plot, it's very, very hard to sort of pull that off. I think it rides the line between being a satire of those scenes in films and just being a sort of a motivator for the character. So yeah, but I think she would play it wonderfully. I'm glad Chris mentioned the Always Sunny episode she was in, because apart from True Detective, I was trying to think of what else I'd seen her in.
This was quite a difficult one for me, and I was, as I mentioned, I'm quite small-minded when it comes to my casting of characters. I kind of look at their nationality or kind of look at their age and kind of zero in as that as my focal point. And I did exactly the same with this character. So for Fabienne, I've cast Marion Cotillard. Cotillard, I think that's how you pronounce her surname. Yeah. I'll refer to her as Marion for the rest of this discussion. I believe the original actress was herself French. And this, if you know your films, if you know your cinema pairings, the person who I've cast as Butch has actually appeared side by side in a lead role with Marion Cotillard. So that's going to be my teasers to who I've cast for Butch. I think Marion's just a fantastic actress, so much range, and she can play that very vulnerable quality to her. We're not going to get into re-scripting and retooling and everything like that. That's not what this show's about. But maybe you could, in a reboot, rewrite Fabienne's character to have a bit more bearing and not quite as childlike and just downright annoying. I'm just going to come out and say it. I do think they are the weakest scenes in Pulp Fiction every time I come to it. I'm always so tempted to just skip the Butch section and just get straight back to the Jewel stuff. But yeah, Marion Cotillard, just fantastic actress. I think she could do it justice. Even if she had like a small role, I think she'd just be way more endearing. And I think because she has featured alongside the actor who I've cast as Butch, I know that those two have great on-screen chemistry together, and I think she could definitely do it justice. She was actually sort of like in the run to play Uma Thurman's character, but I did switch it out. I think it was right. I can't quite see Marion Cotillard as, Mia Wallace's character, but the idea was there at some point.
No, I think it's so hard to say anything about this role. I think again, I think she could do it. I think when there's not much on the table, there's not much source material for this sort of recasting. I think I found this one personally really hard to cast. I think this is the one I spent the longest time on. And at the end of it, I was still just like, I feel like I've just put down a name. Do you know what I mean? But I think Marion could do it. She has some really interesting performances. And like you said, I know we're not rewriting the film, whatever, but I think if you just gave her a little bit more, something to sink her teeth into, it could really, I don't want to say liven up the scenes because it feels disingenuous to say that about a Tarantino film. But yeah, I think she would bring something new to that sort of that aspect of the film. So I think, it'd just be really interesting.
I love Marion Cotillard. Her and Eva Green sit in my top two above the rest of the mountain. So I'm just scanning in my head who Chris's Butch is going to be now, because there are so many incredible actors that she's worked with and upcoming films. She's one of my most anticipated films of the year in the net. So I'm very, very excited to see who you might have cast now. But Marion Cotillard is superb. and also the French Connection as well. That's a good thing. I didn't think of her, which is really annoying now, but wonderful actress.
Just not the French Connection, the movie, right? We're not talking about
no.
Connection. We're talking about the connection that she is indeed French. Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Ryan, what have you got?
I've gone for another television actress from Mad Men, which it's probably best to just bring it out now. It's my favorite TV series ever made. But Jessica Parr plays opposite John Hamm in the later scenes. So I just thought what she does in those. I mean, she's French Canadian herself, so I thought French characters sort of keep it sort of with that cadence and the ways that she delivers those scenes. But there's a sort of age gap between her character and John Hamm's Don Draper, and I just think the way that they have a dynamic is sort of similar to Butch and Fabienne, where she's sort of more, I don't want to say innocent, but she's much more. She hasn't seen the world through his eyes. He seems like he's seen everything, and he's very sort of weathered by it all. And she's very innocent next to him, very sort of still very green in the world. So I thought that's why I'd cast her, because I've seen her do that role sort of before. And again, the French Connection. I think actually, funnily enough, Maria de Medeiros, the original actress, I think she's actually Portuguese. But yeah, that's who I've gone with.
I haven't seen her in anything except I know she's in Mad Men. So
yeah,
look wise, and I connect, and like the language, I can see it, but I'm gonna have to like politely bow out for this just because I've not. I really want to watch Mad Men because I remember you speaking about it before, and I do want to watch it. It's just it's on that list, but it's that whole 1950s the suit stuff, and I think it'd be great.
I'm also going to be the uncultured swine that hasn't watched Mad Men yet. But to your point where you mentioned that, like the age difference thing, I think Fabienne as a character is very submissive compared to Butch's character.
Thank you. That's the word.
And it's like his outbursts, when he absolutely loses his mind about the watch, and just how she kind of comes across in the film. And I think she's intentionally written to be that way. So having no experience of this actress, I have not seen Mad Men, I'm going to take your word for it, Ryan, and say it's a great choice.
Yeah, I think if anyone had seen Mad Men, they'd maybe understand my logic and line of reasoning a bit more. But yeah, I think when you said she's submissive, that sums it up, because there's a lot of times where Don Draper has a Don Draper outburst and she's just sort of there. She doesn't know how to take it or how to talk to him afterwards, and it's very sort of similar to when Butch has his outburst about the watch, and she's just sort of like, oh no, I've done something, but she couldn't figure out why exactly he was so upset about the watch. So I think, yeah, that was just my line of logic for that one.
Definitely. Next up, we have Butch. This is going to be one of the. This was personally one of the hardest ones I had to think of. I was on my feet for a while. I thought, I've got Christian Bale, who's going to pass down the story, who's got to interact with Marcius Wallace, who was very quick for me, and I went in and I.
You better not pick my guy. You better not pick my guy.
I don't know. I picked Michael B. Jordan.
Oh, okay.
Thank God, because we haven't seen each other's list yet. So we don't know what each other have. And Michael B. Jordan, listen, we've all seen Creed, right? He's already been a boxer. Butch is a boxer. We've got the physicality covered. And I just kind of sat there thinking that, Bruce Willis is a weird one, because as a man, I dislike him, but I like his films, and he's in my favorite Christmas film. But whenever you see him in interviews, he just seems like a really nasty piece of shit. And Michael B. Jordan's just the opposite. I thought, if you were casting for a film and you went to like, hey, you're going to star opposite Michael B. Jordan, the world swoons. If you say, hey, you're opposite Bruce Willis, they'll be like, please, no. So I had to think of this, and I thought, he's got the boxing side of him, and performance-wise, I think he's A-lister in his own right. You could see him carry his own story arc. You see him interacting with the other characters, and also I always think of the scene with obviously the chainsaw, the samurai sword, and everything, and I could see Michael B. Jordan, doing the whole weapon, and that's my favorite scene of maybe not the entire film, but Bruce Willis' side is when he's weighing up the weapons, and that's to me the iconic moment. And I think Michael B. Jordan has all that. He's got natural charisma. He's a phenomenal actor, but he could improve that. And that's my pick. I think I was happy with that. I was really happy when I thought of it. It was really quite obvious in actual actually, because I was like, who's been in boxing before? Like, like Creed, the one boxing franchise that's still a thing.
Just going in on Bruce Willis, my God! Like, George, you have the floor. Just get everything off your chest all these years. No, that's a really interesting choice. I mean, yeah, Michael B. Jordan's absolutely fantastic. As you mentioned, he's been a boxer, and I think that he can bring that sort of weathered quality to him. We kind of seen that with the Creed character anyway, like just, you know, Rocky's all about life, and, you know, Rocky mentions that in Rocky 4 about how life can beat you to your knees if you let it. And we're seeing Creed go through that journey, especially after Creed 2. But I'd say even in terms of like the intensity and knowing like what he's capable of and being a sort of force to be reckoned with, especially when he gets riled up, just look at Black Panther as Killmonger. Like the guy can do it, like he's physically imposing, and he's also got the dramatic chops now. Granted, you know, Bruce Willis maybe, you know, not to say he doesn't have dramatic chops, of course he does, but the role of Butch isn't really that character so much. He is just a very withdrawn character that is capable of fits of rage. And, you know, I think Michael B. Jordan could absolutely bring that.
Yeah, I can't think of much else to add to that. I think when I saw, because I saw a couple of George's, because I wasn't sure about sort of where we were taking the sort of recasting, so George had showed me a couple of his. And when I'd seen that one, I thought it was such a really interesting pick, and I picked up on like the sort of Creed link right away. I think there's something about boxers in films that is sort of very interesting, and the way Tarantino approached the character of Butch, I think Michael B. Jordan could bring a lot to that. And sort of, I just think, yeah, it's a really unique way, and it's a very different. Obviously, I don't know what the beef is with Bruce Willis. There's something there, but I think, yeah, I think you've taken a step away from Bruce Willis. Like you said, Michael B. Jordan, when he comes across in interviews, he looks happy. You know, he looks, you know, he's diligent. Whereas Bruce Willis just always looks like he does not want to be there. So I think it's a really interesting change that you've done there. I think it would be I think that's probably the most unique choice so far. But I really like it because it's sort of, you've got the character, and like I think was it Chris just said, you know, it's more his actions as a character than his words as a character. So I think, yeah, his physical presence on screen would be really, really good, and it would match sort of what Bruce Willis brought to that role.
Definitely.
Awesome. Right. Go on,
quick comment. Yeah. Enoch, I like this show already. Thank you. Like I said, this is the first episode. Any feedback will be taken into consideration. So we picked an ensemble as well. So this one's probably going to be longer than most, in truth. But just wanted to quickly bring that up. I do appreciate that.
We can't vouch for all the future episodes. We are beholden to the randomizer. Who knows what films are going to get picked? Like, we picked this one specifically, but it's going to be interesting to see what we get come up. Okay, the role of Butch for me. Now, this actor was actually my original idea for Vincent Vega. I changed my mind at the last minute. Again, this actor has appeared in the pairing with Marion Cotillard. They have great on-screen chemistry. And if you want that guy holding that katana and all of that crazy stuff and know that he can play it, I've gone with Brad Pitt. It had to be another Tarantino link, but my God, like the physicality, you see him in Fight Club and that really kind of, you know, what he's capable of in that film. And in all the other films, especially like the recent ones, honestly, one of the reasons I went with him is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, especially the ending of that film. And spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, what are you doing? Go and watch that film. It's amazing. But the level of violence that guy can get to, and just be completely cool about it as well straight afterwards. Like, he can absolutely own it. As I mentioned, he's got great on-screen chemistry with Marion Cotillard as well. And I think he can also play that weathered kind of quality to him as well. There are elements of that in Seven and a bunch of other films that he's done as well. He's a very versatile actor, but he's also one who's immensely entertaining to watch on screen, especially in a role similar to this. I think he could do the boxing side of Butch's character, and I think he could for damn sure do the whole gimp scene as well, and it'd be an absolute laugh riot to watch him in that part. So Brad Pitt, I had to chuck him in there somewhere, but I think he fits the role of Butch maybe better than I picked for Vincent Vega.
I've got to ask you a quick question before I give you my thoughts. Would he have the shaven head? Would we see a shaven head Brad Pitt?
I don't know if that could work. No, I don't.
I think the hair.
He needs. I think he needs the hair, or maybe cropped a little bit. Yeah, I don't think we could. I don't think the world's ready for a bald Brad Pitt just yet. So.
I mean, I loved what you said about you know, he can do the violent sort of scene. I don't know if either of you have seen the film The Assassination of Jesse James, but I think that's one of his best performances, and he's so weathered as well in that, and he brings that sort of. There's those explosive scenes of quick gun violence in that, which is sort of similar to his scene in Pulp Fiction. You know, he's taking his time, he's picking his weapon, and then once he's got the weapon, that's it. It's done. He, you know, 2 strokes, he kills. I can't remember the character's name, but he kills the first guy, and then he knows when to back off, and he lets Wallace come in with the pile driver shotgun for the other guy. But I think it'd be really interesting to see Brad Pitt in that role. I think it's a good pick as well. I think you need to do the shaved head though. I don't think I've ever seen him bald.
I was going to say, has he been bald in any previous films?
What did? Oh no, but he's had short hair, hasn't he? Like not bold, skinner. But he's had
Friends,
like.
he wasn't bold, but
Google,
he did have shorter hair.
Someone may have worked their magic on Photoshop.
What's quite funny about that is as well is both of those actors have Brad Pitt and Bruce Willis have been in Friends, which is quite funny.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
The Brad Pitt choices. I got worried, and I thought we'd have a crossover for something else. But I'm glad we don't. And Brad Pitt is just a wonder. He's sort of become the
dude. Is the world ready?
Now I've seen it, I don't want it actually.
Right.
Leave the long hair. But can you just imagine him playing the Gimp scene? Like,
yeah,
I think that would be like in Al Pacino when he's in Once Upon a Time. He's like, what a picture. That'd be like me watching like Brad Pitt take on everyone in that moment. But yeah, he's just incredible. Love him. Would see him in this and so many more. Chris, you mentioned it's the Tarantino link, right? I want him in every Tarantino film this day onwards. He needs, and I don't want to get into personal lives, but the last couple of years, he looks like he's having a lot more fun than the 10 years before it. I'll leave that there. But more dude era Brad Pitt, please.
What have you got, Ryan?
So, my pick for I've gone for there's a connection here which I'll sort of go on to in a minute, but just to get at it's Aaron Paul. So obviously there's the sort of director actor parallel with because I've picked Vince Gilligan from Breaking Bad. I think Aaron Paul has a sort of I don't think he's maybe necessarily physically imposing, but he definitely has the cadence and the sort of level of intricacy that I like that I think he could bring to this role because. I think George said earlier about the scene where he's picking the weapon. Aaron Paul's already done that, and he did that in Breaking Bad. There's a scene where he goes out and he's trying to pick a weapon, and obviously it's just another one of the parallels to Breaking Bad. But I think shaven head Aaron Paul as well. I think it really works. I could see him being in the role. I think he's another one as well where after a few years of maybe not being in anything, casting him in a sort of film with this sort of scope would bring him back to sort of the face of sort of big actors again. And also, my pick for Wallace is sort of another sort of link between the cast because they've already worked together there. So I think that'll be more apparent when we get to that. But I didn't really consider how he would play up with who I've picked for Fabian because I think those scenes are just so. I don't want to say uninspiring, but I almost forgot that they're a couple pairing on screen, so I didn't even really consider how they'd work together. But I just think Aaron Paul, you can already see him with the shaved head. The bloodied up vest. I think it would just be really funny, and I think the way he speaks as well. Bruce Willis has a very unique way of talking, and I think Aaron Paul he has a bit of a crazier voice. I think he sounds very. I don't know if he sounds mad all the time, but he sounds very eccentric, and I just think he brings something unique to the role.
Aaron Paul's a really interesting one. Is he in BoJack Horseman? I feel as if he's one of those where. What the Seinfeld curse they always called it when an actor was so iconic to a role. Where it's hard for them to be considered anything else. Obviously, I always forget her name. Julia Dreyfus broke that when she did Veep, but he's one of them where you're right, bang on. He needs something that's gonna not quietly drop Breaking Bad, but he's always going to be Jesse, right? Until he does something that's so obscure, that's so not Jesse, he's going to stand up, and I think that kind of role would be perfect. And you could see him do it easily with the weapon stuff, and obviously other choices. They made the Vince Gilligan connection too. I really like him. I think he's someone that. I remember him in Need for Speed, and it was then.
Oh, there we go.
Ooh,
Need for Speed will do that to someone. Oh, there we go. I think you.
There we go. Yeah, I was just going to say, Need for Speed was then just cashing in on Breaking Bad, and he. Oh, there we go. And I think he just needs. I know BoJack's very popular and did very well, but live action wise, I think he's needing that next thing, whether it's TV or film. But I think he's easily got awards anyway because he's phenomenal. And also, anyone that's the number 2 to Bryan Cranston is always going to slightly be under a shadow, but he does enough in a lot of episodes to get onto his left times.
I think some of the Jesse episodes, sort of the more Jesse-centric ones, are some of my favourite ones looking back on it. And you just brought up his BoJack Horseman role, which is BoJack Horseman is another one of my favourite TV shows, and it's such a shame because his role in that as well, he's so brilliant in that, but he just never seems to quite break into. I don't know what happened because, like you say, he came out of Breaking Bad and then he did Need for Speed, which was just sort of really weird. It was not what I thought he would do next. So I think he deserves not a second chance, but I think he deserves to be. Unless it's just down to him as a person. Maybe he's just not interested in sort of the sort of big picture stuff. What do you think, Chris?
I don't blame him for taking like Need for Speed. Like, you know, if a studio approaches you like a blockbuster film, you're fresh off Breaking Bad, you're looking for work. I don't blame him for doing it. But I think he's outstanding in Breaking Bad, and he is one of those actors that is so good in that and does have so much range. And you have genuine, real sympathy and empathy for the character. You get emotional at him and what he goes through. Like in the bits where he breaks down, you really feel for him. And obviously, he is a very funny character as well. So he is an actor that I would like to see do more. So this is an interesting casting in that I'm still attaching all the acting choices that he made as Jesse, but I know as an actor he could do something more. So this is sort of like an interesting perception for me to see Aaron Paul in that role, because I think he could do a really good job. It would be a very different take on the character of Butch, I think, but maybe not an awful one, because we know that Aaron Paul is a fantastic actor given the chance. But he is an actor, yeah, just in general, outside of this, he is an actor that I would love to see do way more stuff, because I know he's capable of it.
Definitely. So next up, we've got a kind of capping off one story I can involving in the next. We have Marcius Wallace. This was one of the hardest ones for me to cast. A character we don't get actually that much time with, but he leaves a big impression, and it's Ving Rhames. So he's a legend in itself. And I thought long and hard, and I settled on someone that is different in sides, I guess you could say, but I think could leave a hell of an impact, and that is Daniel Kaluuya.
Oh, that's fantastic.
To me, right now, he is one of the most exciting actors working. I don't even want to say in Hollywood, in film. Obviously, he won the Oscar this year. This isn't because of that. This is because of watching Widows, which I absolutely loved. He stole that film for me. He could have easily won an Oscar for that, and he was obviously playing a gangster, but he has this unpredictability towards him where I guess everyone said of Gal, he's like performance in his eyes, right? I keep going about eyes tonight, and he's just able to act. You know how Tom Hardy in not Tenet, Tom Hardy in Dunkirk, Nolan said, he's got more talent in one eyebrow than most actors do without anything. And I feel like I get that with Daniel Kaluuya's eyes, let alone the rest of him. He's phenomenal. And I think he is very good at what he works with. Even in something like Black Panther, where it was a big film, it was a humongous film, but had he been the status he is now, he would have been in a completely different role, or maybe been saved for a bigger role in the future. But I think he's one of the most exciting actors. And playing a gangster, he is intimidating, and you would not want to get on the wrong side of him, as shown in Widows when he makes that kid rap and then he headshots him out of nowhere. That is a gangster, and I've not even thought about the Gimp scene until now. And not that I want to visualize it, but him and Michael B. Jordan together could, I think, work as well as a kind of duo / friend enemy in their own right.
Yeah, no, I think he could bring those comedic chops to it as well. It's like a sense of dark comedy with that moment in the film, and I think he could absolutely bring it. He's very imposing, but he also commands the screen a lot as well. If you look at, his recent film, Judas and the Black Messiah, you just hang on his every word. He's just absolutely tremendous, just an absolute force to be reckoned with. But even if he did play it more understated, even Ving Rhames' first appearance in the film, we don't even see him properly. You just hear his voice, where you have that extended monologue with Al Green's song in the background. I could imagine him delivering that. And even if you just had, Kaluuya's voice in the background, I think that would be tremendous. So yeah, I could absolutely see that. This was actually a casting that came quite easy to me, but I didn't even consider him. But yeah, I think that would be a really, really good fit, actually.
Yeah, I think, to my shame, I think the only thing I've really seen him in is Get Out, but his performance there was, fantastic. He's clearly, like you said, George, he's one of the most interesting people working at the minute. I mean, he's been in Black Panther and Widows and all sorts of stuff. So I think he's on a massive upward trajectory, and I could just see him. Yeah, I mean, Ving Rhames is very, very hard to replace. But when you pulled up the photo of them two next to each other, they have that on-screen coolness to them. Do you know what I mean? Where you just look at them and you think, that's a character who on the screen is going to be in control of the scene. And you know that they're going to have that sort of antagonistic element, but you can't help but sort of pull for them during the film. So I think, that's a really, really good choice.
Absolutely. And Hennick's digging the choices as well. Comment from Hennick right here. Michael B. Jordan, Daniel Kaluuya, they are both absolutely interesting actors, definitely. I'd say two of the best in the business at the moment, and really interesting to see where their career goes to. Whether it leads to a Pulp Fiction reboot, who knows? Maybe if studios get an idea for it. But my pick, and I can't remember who mentioned it, you mentioned sort of like that coolness to them. that sort of like cold, calculating side to them, and that's kind of what I was going for. In terms of physicality, you know, R.I.P. I can't cast Michael Clarke Duncan. He would have been my first choice to play Marcellus Wallace. Instead, I've gone with Mahershala Ali. So basically, just I went to Luke Cage for this, where he has basically played this exact same character in the character of Cottonmouth. Easily the walkaway character in that entire series. Spoiler alert for Luke Cage, he's probably only in it for like the first half of the series, and as soon as he was gone out of that series, the entire series just dipped. He was easily the most interesting character in that film, and also plays this crime boss who, you know, it goes more into his past in that, so there's more of like a sympathy and an origin story for him. You don't really get that with Marcellus Wallace. He is just kind of a clear-cut crime boss, but Mahershala Ali, like, he can do it. He has that intensity. He can be very scary now. Granted, maybe not as physically imposing as Ving Rhames, but I definitely think in terms of those monologues, he can act it. He can do it. And even with like the whole kind of dark comedy sense of the whole Gimp scene and everything, we've seen Mahershala Ali be more lighthearted. You know, Green Book, he has that back and forth with Viggo Mortensen's character. So he can have sort of like those quippy lines and everything and be a bit more upbeat, but it's that coolness you want, and I think Mahershala Ali's got that in spades.
If I'm correct, is he in Into the Spider-Verse? He plays the uncle,
yes.
doesn't he?
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to think of what I might have seen him in. I just did a quick check, and I was like, I think that's who it is.
Moonlight, is that what it was called? The one that won Best Picture as well. He was I think did he win the Oscar for that, for supporting actor? I'm not sure.
I can't remember because not even the Oscars knew if Moonlight was winning anything that year.
Yeah,
so, I mean, from the limited things I've seen him in, his performance, just based on his voice alone, his vocal performance, Ving Rhames has a very, like what you were saying, his delivery about, you know, the first scenes, you don't even really see him, but, you know, he has that sort of, the way he speaks is so imposing, and I think, there's absolutely that connection there. I don't want to speak too much because I don't want to embarrass myself by speaking to stuff that I'm not really too sure about, but from the limited things I've seen him in, I think that was a really good pick. I think George would probably be a bit more vocal about this one.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I didn't bring the photo, did I? I'm in a little trance. Next one. No, sorry, I've completely cut off. My internet's cut me off. Sorry, I thought we're talking Mahershala Ali.
Yes,
that's where we're at.
No, sorry, I was double checking. I've still not seen Moonlight, but I have seen Green Book, and say what you want about Green Book, he's the best thing in it, it's fair to say, but when you think of Prowler from Into the Spider-Verse, as you mentioned, he reached the coolness, he's a cool guy, and as an actor goes, he has this certain suave class with him on screen, where whenever he's speaking about stuff, you kind of linger on it. There's a reason they're bringing back Blade, right? It wasn't Marvel saying, we're rebooting Blade, he was interested. He went to Kevin Feige and was like, I want to play Blade, and they just commissioned it. And I think that's the kind of actor you want in roles like this. And playing that gangster at the top, I saw the first couple episodes of Luke Cage. I think I only saw that shot of him, you know, when they do the whole like standing in front of the crown thing. He is phenomenal, and I think he would be superb for that.
Absolutely. We've had Carl chip in as well. Nonso Anazi, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, who recently starred in Netflix's Sweet Tooth as Big Man. He's so imposing. I just checked. I know him as Zaro Zoan Daxos from Game of Thrones. He was from season 2 of Game of Thrones with the whole Daenerys storyline, who gets sealed in the vault at the end by Daenerys. Yes, very imposing actor. And I haven't actually seen him in anything outside of that, but he was really good in that for the small part that he played in Game of Thrones when we were still in the infant days of Game of Thrones in season 2, and it was, you know, still good.
The glory days.
The glory days, absolutely.
Definitely.
Ryan, what about your pick? Let's try a little act surprise as to who you picked.
Yeah, I wonder if you can guess. I don't know. No, I've picked Giancarlo Esposito for Wallace. I don't think he necessarily has that sort of physical, imposing sort of attitude. Maybe, perhaps. I know in The Mandalorian he comes across as, you know, a skilled fighter and stuff like that. But what drew me to casting him was just, you know, his cadence as an actor, and he has that sort of, you know, like you say, he in Breaking Bad and stuff, he's, you know, the bad guy. But when you're watching his scenes, you almost want him to succeed because of the way he's just so meticulous. You know, he's really calculated in how he goes about it. And I sort of think back, sort of the link I was on about earlier was with Vince Gilligan directing and Aaron Paul being him playing an antagonistic role to Aaron Paul. I think there's already that familiarity between the characters. So I think on screen it would be really interesting when, he goes back to save him. I just think that would be really interesting. I think as a meta reference more than anything, just the idea of how those characters end up in one sort of piece of text in Breaking Bad to how they ended up in Pulp Fiction, where, Aaron Paul, there's that moment where Bruce Willis is like, he's about to leave and then he knows he can't leave and the right thing to do is to go back. So I just think it'd be really interesting to see two characters who people maybe know as cat and mouse, fighting each other and scrapping to get on top of each other. I think it'd be really interesting to see them sort of have that almost reconciled scene where Giancarlo has to sort of, admit that he saved him and let him go. I just think, he's just such a wonderful actor, and I think maybe he's not physically imposing, but I think he does have that sort of. He's got that sort of more coolness to him where, Ving Rhames is very sort of cool, but Giancarlo is a sort of more subdued kind of cool, I think. So, yeah.
Listen, Giancarlo Esposito is an actor where I hadn't seen much of him, obviously, until Breaking Bad. And he became one of my favorite parts of it. The moment he's introduced, right? And it's the way in which he can deliver his lines that he's become this tried and tested stereotype of being a villain, but he loves it. He's gone on record so that he enjoys playing villains, and I don't want to see him as a good guy. Can he play a gangster? We've seen it once. Has he had a lightsaber? And he pulled that off pretty well. I think he could easily do this role, and I think he'd be superb for it. And you got to think of those sort of dialogue scenes, as Chris said earlier, that you hang on to every word he says in everything he's in. Whether it's Moff Gideon, I know he's going to be in the new Far Cry game as well, whether it's Breaking Bad, you listen to him. And I think seeing him acting as well for it would be phenomenal. So I'm down for that. Again, apologies about that cock up spoiling it before.
No, that's cool. I still act surprised, so it's fine. No, he's tremendous. I will say he is kind of an actor that, even with Mandalorian, in some ways, it feels like they are kind of aping on the success of his character from Breaking Bad. He does feel like a very similar kind of character. I'd say he's a lot more sort of like cold than he is, and maybe not as expressive as he is in Mandalorian in Breaking Bad, but he's just so intimidating, and rightfully casted in Mandalorian. Like, the guy can do an absolutely tremendous job. You see him in interviews, he's the nicest guy ever. It just shows what a great actor he is. And even to have those two sides to him as well in Breaking Bad, how he can play the facade, he can be the face of his company, but then behind closed doors, he is this absolute, complete psychopath. Like, he's just, so I think that's tremendous. Yeah, would be a very different take on, obviously he wouldn't have the physicality that Ving Rhames does, but in terms of the presence and believing this guy that could be ahead of a huge crime corporation. Yeah, absolutely. Because we've seen him play it and we know that he has that. He would command the authority of someone in that same role that Marcellus Wallace would be. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my main draw was the scene where Bruce Willis goes back and saves him, and then Wallace has the shotgun, and then he's in control of that entire scene. That's it, and that's exactly how he is in Breaking Bad. Any scene that he's in, he is the Don. He's controlling that scene. All the actors are sort of reacting to him. Do you know what I mean? He's just, every word he says, yeah, you are hanging on it. So I think that's more why I picked him. But yeah.
Definitely, I said perfect. Next up, we're going to go with Mia Wallace, just because we're just sort of debating it still. I was not the husband, the wife to Marcellus Wallace. Obviously,
depends who you cast, right? I suppose.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. We may switch things up, but obviously, this is sort of slowly leaving the Wallaces, getting into the briefcase storyline. But I've gone for what feels like a really boring, obvious choice.
George,
I
swear to God, don't you dare! I
picked Anya Taylor-Joy. Listen, look at the eyes. And that's the last time we're going to go on about eyes tonight. Please and done. So I've not seen the chess series that everyone still goes on about. It's on my Netflix. It's on my Netflix watch list, but I've had Okja on there for like 6 years. It really doesn't mean much. From what I've seen of her in her films, she is a very, very talented actress. And the problem with Pulp Fiction is that, let alone it being an iconic cast, this is the poster girl, right? This is when you think of Pulp Fiction, you either go to probably Sam Jackson or Uma Thurman first, in any iconic moment, it's maybe one of those two or Travolta. And I was going to think, who could play this role? And that's when I thought of the daughter, Maya Hawke. And then it hit me that I think Maya Hawke would be better off being Honey Bunny. And I was sat there facing, who has that intensity? Because you think of the scene, not just the dancing, it's the stuff in the diner, it's the drug overdose and all that kind of thing. And it just came out to me now. I haven't fortunately seen the New Mutants, and she was in that. And I don't want to say she's one of the better things in it because the whole film was a train wreck. But
she was the best thing in it.
Yeah, this is the problem. She was the best thing in it. You can tell she's an actress that's going to be way above and beyond. And I think after Queen's Gambit, she is already probably nearer that A-list term. I think she just hosted SNL, and she was very funny when she did it. And I was kind of thinking it's the innocence of the role. That yes, she's not so innocent that she overdoses and everything, but you look at her as this girl that's clearly in a marriage she's not happy in and all that kind of stuff. And I just think performance-wise, she would steal the scene. And any moment you could think of her, I think she could maybe do what even Thurman does.
Is she an actress who's in her 20s? I'm trying to place the age. She feels like
she's definitely 20s. Yeah,
right.
she's in her 20s. She's quite actually. Well, it might be worth checking. I don't think she's a teenager.
I've only seen her in The New Mutants, so that's all I have to go on. I haven't seen The Queen's Gambit. It's on my back burner. I know that everyone was talking about it when it came out. Maybe quite rightfully so, but I haven't watched it.
Glass. She's 25. Oh. She was obviously in Split and Glass. Of course she was.
That's right. I keep forgetting she was in that. Yeah, I mean, she was great in that. We know that she can do the dramatic stuff. Mia Wallace is a very almost noir-esque kind of character, I think, in many ways, with just how she carries herself and sort of like the visual representation of her. This is a very different choice. I don't know. You didn't go where I thought you were going to go, which is fortunate for me because I've gone places with my one. But I mean, I personally haven't seen her in enough stuff, so I don't know how she would translate to a character like Mia Wallace. But I know she's been, as I mentioned, Queen's Gambit is really highly regarded in her performance. Really praised for that. So yeah, I guess it's an interesting choice. It wouldn't be who I thought you would have picked.
I guess I get to book the trend here because I have seen Queen's Gambit and I absolutely loved it. And I was so excited when I saw that George had picked. And as soon as I'd seen that George had picked it, I was like, oh my God, that's perfect. It was like, yeah, absolute masterstroke. She's genuinely fantastic. I mean, she's been in The Witch as well. She's going to be in Edgar Wright's upcoming film, Last Night in Soho. Yeah, I mean, George, I don't know if I don't want to spoil Queen's Gambit, but she has a very reminiscent scene to Mia Wallace. She has a sort of a dancey, overdosey kind of scene in that, which is, yeah. And was thinking about all that when I saw you pick. I was like, that is just genius. I didn't know you hadn't seen the Queen's Gambit, so I thought you were already maybe aware of that sort of connection. But yeah, she's the poster girl, absolutely. I mean, she's done it already now with the Queen's Gambit. Everywhere you turn on the TV, Queen's Gambit this, Queen's Gambit that. She's absolutely a poster girl. I was so, I think you can tell I was really excited when I saw it. I was like, that's just brilliant. I'm almost mad because I wish I'd picked it because it's so good. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Okay, so we get to my one. I'm actually glad that George picked who he did. So we haven't had any crossovers yet, which is mad.
I'm scared still. I'm still scared. I'm not accepting it till at the end.
George, mine is a movie that you'd want to watch. Earlier you said with Marion Cotillard, you mentioned her and one other actress, and I have them both in my film. We've got Eva Green. I had to. I mean, look at that. Look at the eyes. Look at that smoldering gaze. She is my new Mia Wallace. Like, she absolutely had to be. Eva Green's absolutely tremendous. She's, she has played the villainous role, in the 300 sequel they made. She always just has this really striking quality to her, like, from her appearance and also her voice as well, which is a huge thing, like this very purring voice that she has. But also with Mia Wallace, after like the whole ODing scene, similar to Fabian's character, she does sort of regress, and the facade of this, crime kingpin's wife just kind of drops. And I think in that final goodbye, I know she kind of has another meeting later on with John Travolta's character, but in that final proper conversation the two have at the end of the date, it's her at her absolute real self, and he's seeing directly into her. And I think that Eva Green can easily do that. You look at her performance as Vesper in Casino Royale, where, she is this femme fatale kind of character who goes toe-to-toe with Bond, that first dialogue scene they have. But after the scene where she kills that person and she's having to kind of process that, and she's kind of sitting in the shower and she's almost catatonic in that scene, I could absolutely see her bringing that vulnerability and sort of regression quality that she did in that role for Casino Royale to the role of Mia Wallace. I think one of the reasons that I just picked Eva Green was the appearance, just especially in that photo, just the kind of eyes and maybe the makeup style and everything, the hair. I could absolutely see her playing that role. And I think it would be an interesting pairing with Mahershala Ali as well. Two actors that I would never think of seeing together. Maybe she wouldn't blend well with who I've picked for Vincent Vega, obviously, as we get into that later on. But I had to. There was no... I kept going through so many actresses, and this was actually a really difficult one, but I went more for a visual look, I think, with this one, and her role in Casino Royale than anything else.
Yeah, straight away when George pulled up the pictures, yeah, the appearance is spot on, isn't it? You know, like smouldering sort of aspect of it. It's just fantastic. I think the only thing I've already seen her in, unfortunately, is Casino Royale. But yeah, absolutely, I can absolutely imagine her in that role. Yeah, I don't want to speak too much because I feel like my experience with her as an actress is very limited. But yeah, the appearance alone, you can tell that she would bring a sort of cadence and a level to the performance that would be really, really interesting.
And not that it was any good, but she's by a country mile the only good thing in Sin City 2.
Of course.
I still haven't seen.
Yeah,
I've seen the first one.
Don't.
No, I'd recommend not to.
Yeah, I've honestly avoid it's awful. But no, listen, you have me at either. So I can't really add much more to that other than we're going to get to Casino Royale in the next couple of months on our Bond videos, just to plug that once more. So no. Perfect choice. And again, it's that pulp vibe, right? And that's why I keep thinking Sin City, that you can see the photo shoot, her on the bed with the cigarette, her doing the dancing of John Travolta. Not that we've got John Travolta this time around. No face hugging from him like we keep seeing at the Oscars. But no, either incredible choice. I'm not going to complain at all.
Is that who, if we do a reboot of Alien, is that who you're casting as the face hugger, John Travolta?
Just like sends out like mini John Travoltas to people.
Oh God, that's terrifying. Who we got next?
Right, I've picked a sort of maybe a not necessarily a niche one. She's been in some bigger stuff recently, but I was basing this pick just basically on her performance in Twin Peaks season 3, and it's Amanda Seyfried. And I think maybe you can sort of just based on facial sort of features alone why I've gone for this role. But in Twin Peaks, she's sort of with she's with like a sort of he's like a drug addict sort of, and you know they're trying to sort of escape that life, but the way that she acts, and it's because obviously it's a David Lynch thing, so there's a lot of you know lucid sort of levels to the performance. But yeah, I think she just has when she does because she does a drug scene in Twin Peaks, and I just thought it was it's just one of the most understated drug performances I think in anything. Like it's got sort of a coolness about it as well, which I think it would be really interesting to see her in that role as Mia Wallace, just based on that alone, really. I think, again, yeah, facially, I think it's there. And I think if anyone's seen the sort of scene in question, it's very understated and very subtle, but it's just, I just think it's brilliant. And the way she sort of escalates her situation with her boyfriend as well is really good.
I've not seen Twin Peaks, but what I have seen in which she was the best thing was Mank from last year.
Yeah.
I thought she was, I think she was the best thing. Very much that, I know it's not golden era Hollywood, Pulp Fiction, but when you see like the scenery, the makeup, what they do with her, transforming her into that sort of 50s Hollywood icon, that's where I just felt with Mia Wallace that it was that old school type thing. And I think she's become one of those actors where, you know, I've not seen Mamma Mia because I don't want to see Pierce Brosnan sing a dance, but she's very interesting with, when you look at the girls and Mean Girls, she was the weird one from it, but I would argue of the four, she's gone on to have the best career out of them. And that's a really random tangent, but I think she's a very underrated actress that is one of those where she's slowly worked to, I don't want to say work to work because it sounds really unfair, but she's took on the more interesting roles that aren't necessarily the A-list films, but she's been able to, you know, working on a David Lynch thing, slap that on your CV. And it's like that Rob Pattinson mold, isn't it? Where they've been able to divert away from what a lot of people knew them as when they were growing up.
Yeah, I was going to go Mank as well with this one because that's the most recent thing I think I've seen her in. And yeah, although I had sort of mixed opinions on that film as a whole, she was easily my favorite thing in there. And also similar to the character that she plays in that now, I don't know the history. I've only watched Mank once, and Citizen Kane's also a film that I've only seen once, so my memory's a little hazy on the film Mank, but I was under the impression she played sort of an actress that had bit parts here and there, and she married into like a director or something, didn't she? And he kind of put her name out in the spotlight a lot more. And I kind of get that impression with Mia Wallace as well. You know, she did a failed pilot, and it's implied she maybe did a few things here and there, but nothing substantial. And she's married into someone rich, powerful that kind of gives her status. So I guess there's kind of a similar element there. And also when she hangs out with Gary Oldman's character in that film, and they have that heart to heart, and she kind of gets away from the facade a little bit, and she can be herself a little bit more. So there's some parallels there. But even in terms of the look as well, I think Seyfried is a very underrated actress. Hopefully now after Mank, she can pick up a little bit more. Obviously, I know she's done like a bunch of roles before that point, but Mank was definitely the one for me that stood out the most in terms of her career, I think.
Definitely. Just a quick comment from Carl earlier. He wouldn't like it, but Jennifer Lawrence is Mia. I did think of that originally. When I thought of it, I kept thinking of oh god, what is it? The I never finished it. The David O. Russell one, American Hustle, playing very much that sort of wife figure.
I did actually pencil that in as a pick as well, and then I thought Jennifer Lawrence was a bit. I don't know. I think some of her performances can be maybe. I don't know. I want to say wooden, but do you know what I mean? A bit colouring by the numbers, sort of. So I think she could do it absolutely. I think there was something that drew me to, because obviously I penciled her in for the sort of role and then changed my mind on it. So I can see that line of thinking absolutely. I think she would do it, and she would do it well. But I think maybe she doesn't necessarily take risks in her performances or the role she picks. Perhaps
it always seems quite safe. And it's, especially not to bring an X-Men, but when it gets that last X-Men film, it's kind of her like, finally they're killing me. And you can tell it was the relief. Next up, we have one of the more interesting ones. I really hope never cross over.
This is the wild card one, I think.
Right, Winston Wolfe. I had a load of actors, and this was one of the funnest but hardest ones. And I thought straight away, no TV direct line insurance adverts for this man, please. I've gone for, as far as I'm concerned, British royalty. It's Gary Oldman.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah.
Look at that photo. He has become Winston Wolfe. You know, it's already there. I was so proud when I saw that photo from the Oscars, and I always call him Goldman just because it's quicker. But he is. I've said this already. Now I had Christy Bell, one of my favorite actors in it. Gary Oldman to me has always been this one. I know he was in True Romance, which is Tarantino to a point, but who could be that guy that rocks up in the suit that? I don't want to say command scene, but he's got authority instantly. On his day, Gary Oldman has it. And I didn't like Mank that much, which is a shame because I was really looking forward to it. And I didn't mind him in the Churchill film, but those 90s Gary Oldman films, you know, look at the noughties, the serious black stuff. On his day, there are a few like him. And when he has the intensity, when he has the class, he can do it. And I always go back to that sort of Oscar speech when you could tell he was really nervous and stuff. Always makes things like, you know, nervous in front of his peers, the acknowledgement how like humbled he was. But then you think of him like stuff like Leon, where he's like a wild card. I think he's got that Harvey Keitel factor that could be a force of nature in this role. So to me, Gary Oldman, and when I can unveil the cast of Vincent Vega and Jules, you can see his authority on those as well. That I think he would work very well with them. And that's a big thing for me. But Gary Oldman, just that photo alone, you know, he's already in costume. Just, you know, it was almost Pierce Brosnan. I will say that Pierce Brosnan. If anyone's seen his incredible new beard, he's got the silver hair, everything. It was almost Brosnan, but you're not Gary Oldman. I'm afraid, as much as I love you.
I think that's an amazing choice. Gary Oldman's just easily one of the best character actors of all time, in my opinion, whether it be the very theatrical Bram Stoker's Dracula, Drexel, as you mentioned, from True Romance. Again, a character very similar to Winston Wolfe in that he's in it for such a small amount of time, but the impact that he has and the memorable quality that he brings to that character. Even recent stuff, Darkest Hour, like he just absolutely escapes into a role. And even when he's in Friends for a short episode or two, he's tremendous. So, yeah, I think that's a great choice. I'm interested, as you mentioned, to see who you've picked as Vincent Vega and Jules, just to see how the three of them would work off each other. But Gary Oldman can just do everything. He can be understated. He can go full-blown Leon with everyone and just be completely, absolutely manic. Amazing choice. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw it, the photo number one straight away. Yeah, if he just shaves a little bit off, it's there. Like he doesn't need to change anything. But yeah, he's very interesting. It's such a fun pick, I think, because like you said, Chris, he's a character actor who just disappears into the role. And I'm eager to see who you've got as the other two, George, now to see how the sort of dynamic between those characters would work. But yeah, I don't know what else I can say that you guys haven't already put down, because yeah, it's such a fun pick. And like, I think his role in Harry Potter and Prisoner of Azkaban, he's not in a great deal of that film, but his performance in that film is very is one of the bigger performances in it. And I think that's sort of similar here, as, you know, he's only in a couple of scenes, but this character anyway, but Gary Oldman would absolutely steal those scenes and make them his. So yeah, that's a really, really fun pick.
And Hennick approves as well. He says, yeah, he would be nice. It seems like full marks all across the board for Gary Oldman. We'll get on to mine then. So I went for a slightly older picture of this actor because I checked what this guy was looking like now in 2021, and it wasn't a pretty sight. And visually, he could never play Winston Wolfe in A Month of Sunday, so he'd have to lose a lot of weight and stop eating burgers and hot dogs at baseball games. The one and only, I had to go Jack Nicholson. Like, just if you've got to bring in the guy who's going to take care of everything, you best believe it better be Jack Nicholson. Now, maybe this is a bias to me because Jack Nicholson's my favorite actor of all time. Just, I think it's his persona and his mannerism. It's I've got to bring it up again. The shades, that grin, it's everything. So maybe more zany than perhaps Harvey Keitel played it in Pulp Fiction, but you got to call in that guy, and Jack Nicholson shows up at the door in those shades, in that suit. That's just it to me. And, you know, like, even in terms of like gangster stuff, that could be a nice meta thing as well. You know, he has been in Departed, he's been in a bunch of other stuff as well. Again, an actor whose kind of career sort of peaked around like the 70s and 80s, I would say. Tremendous actor, one of the best, but, you know, he has kind of gone into retirement now. So that would also be kind of cool that Winston Wolfe's kind of this outlier. He's this person you call, like, you don't even imagine that he's out there all the time. Like, you call him in the absolute emergencies, bring him out of retirement again, and he's the guy who knows it all. He knows all the tricks of the trade and how to get the job done. Jack Nicholson's the guy for me, so that's my Winston Wolfe.
Yeah, I love the meta reasoning you gave behind that pick at the end there, because it's spot on. You know, he's sort of in retirement, but if you call him, he'll come in and he'll get it done and it'll be perfect. And there was another word you used when you said he was zany. I was just like, yeah, that's it. And what he would bring to that role, I think it would elevate it to a sort of a more comedic standing than it currently is. But I don't think that would diminish it at all. I think it would just be it would be an extra element to it that's so funny. Because Jack Nicholson, he can be sort of comedic and stuff, but then again, like you said, you know, he's got that gangster element. You can tell he's an old sort of wizened, you know, he's seen it all. You know, nothing's going to faze him. Like rocking up to a car where these guys have blown this guy's brains everywhere and he's got to clean it up, but he doesn't bat an eyelid. I can absolutely see, you know, Jack Nicholson doing that really
if
good.
He squared up to me and like whipped his shades off and was like, listen here, and he's gonna like go into it and be like, yes, Mr. Jack Nicholson, sir, I'm so sorry, like I'd be terrified.
It's like Vince Vega, isn't it, in the film? You know, he doesn't want to do what Wolf tells him to do unless he gets a please, and then as soon as Wolf turns around, he's like, we're gonna, you know, we better get this done. It's your ass on the line. So yeah, that's such a fun pick.
It'd be perfect. And it's what he said, is Jack Nicholson, right? If he turned up on set and someone had to listen to him, that's game over. You're sorted. You don't do anything else. He is in there. He's telling them what to do, and they will do it, because he would probably like eat them or something insane. Like he, you know, like how unhinged he is in those roles. Like he would just do the smile, and then everyone's just terrified and starts cleaning up the body for him. So perfect.
We've had a recommendation from Carl. What about Christoph Waltz? Good choice. Very Tarantino-esque. Obviously, he's been in 2 films at this point. I think he has, hasn't he? Good choice. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, he's got the acting chops for it. Sure. Hopefully, we haven't stole Ryan's thunder if he has actually picked Christoph Waltz. We may have done good again.
No, I haven't. But he is another person, like you said, Chris. You could definitely see him in this role. He would bring a sort of cadence to it. And I think the only reason I didn't pick him was because he'd sort of worked with Tarantino before a bit, and you know, I don't think it'd be easy, but I thought, you know, I think it's a pick that it just makes so much sense that I was like, I think, you know, keep clear of it a little bit. But I've picked Al Pacino for this role.
Oh my God, yes.
Because again, I think we've all had similar lines of thought. You know, there's that sort of ex-gangster, sort of hardened man to it, but. It's just the other choice for me for this role was I nearly picked De Niro, but I was thinking about Heat mostly when I was thinking about this role, and I was just like, Al Pacino, the way he handles himself in Heat, and then I just thought how he would handle himself in this scenario. I just thought it would be funny to see Al Pacino do this, and B, I just think like similar things to what you guys said. You know, he's done the gangster sort of thing. He's seen there, he's done it, he's lived that life, and he's sort of, you know, he knows how to sort of chill out now that he's older, and I think that's almost sort of true to his acting career now, because I don't think he does maybe sort of as big a sort of eccentric roles now anymore, maybe. But yeah, in his heyday, you know, you could tell he was the king for a long time. So yeah, I just thought Al Pacino. Yeah, I just saw Heat, and I was like, yeah, Al Pacino could do it. And I just think the way that Harvey Keitel originally delivers those lines, I can just imagine. Again, Al Pacino, his voice is such a commanding, authoritative voice, but it's got that sort of, there's an X factor about it. It's a voice that I don't think I get tired of hearing. So to let him have a role where he just talks and talks and talks and has like funny quips to the characters and stuff. I just thought, I thought he'd be a really good fit.
I think Pacino is perfect. I mean, when you sent over, I just kind of sat there like, not when you got the diamonds, but I was just thinking, you know, Crispy did Heat recently, and it was the whole, you know, slapping the table. Even if there's moments where Harvey Keitel's pretty calm, I would take the Pacino scream, please, or just like him being insane. And he's just what an absolute man, what an absolute legend of the game. And the fact in The Irishman, he was the best thing in it. The fact, you know, he could outdo De Niro. He was able to outdo Joe Pesci, who came out of retirement, so many other ones. And it was all about the Pacino. He's still got it. And I want to see it.
Yeah, I want to see it too. This is an amazing choice. I love Pacino, even his like really, really bad comedy films, just everything in between. And you're right, like, you know, we did Heat, what was it, at the beginning of the year, I think, wasn't it, when we did our retro review on it? And it's still so fresh to me, and that film keeps repeating. That's like easily one of my favorite films to go back to. I would like to see some Pacinoisms of him going from 0 to 100 very quickly in this role. I know that he can do sort of like, if you go back to Insomnia and even some bits of Heat where he's quite understated, he's very intense before he goes full-blown cartoon character. And even in The Irishman as well, you know, he does have those Pacino outbursts where he goes on like massive tirades and everything. So yeah, this is amazing. I just want to see Pacino in more stuff. And he was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as well, so you got a Tarantino link there as well. Yeah, that's amazing. My God, I think that might be the highlight. I mean, we've got the ultimate pairing now, haven't we? We've got the duo that's going to carry us home for Pulp Fiction.
Vincent Vega and Jules Winfield. Starting with Vince Vega, I could do the longest hype-up introductory point of all time, but Chris would have already clocked it by then, so let's just get it over with. It's Adam Driver.
Oh,
no questions asked. I'm sorry.
We need to limit
at the photos.
With how many times you can pick Adam Driver.
I know. I'm going to get him out of the way now and done. Look at the face on the left and then the right. Tell me he couldn't do it with his eyes shut. We have here.
I just want to know why you've got the same picture twice on the screen.
It was tempting. Listen, I want to get on the hype train, but I'm not going to stop. He, to me, is the modern day De Niro. The next 10 years, minimum 2 Oscars. I reckon he's going to win it for Gooch next year. He's been an actor that he has done the big franchise, yes. But amongst that time, he's been able to jump onto smaller projects, to indie projects. He's worked with so many auteurs, and they're all desperate to work with him. And I think even Scorsese himself called up on stage and said, this is the next De Niro. I think he is an incredible actor. And when you look at Vincent Vega, he's kind of really awkward, right? I mean, it's not John Travolta being weird for a change. He's a very weird guy. That, you know, he's spent time in Amsterdam. He's been in. No, he hasn't. I'm getting them mixed up already. Yes. Sorry, I'm missing it in my head. But I just think the awkward dance, right? Who could do the weird awkward dance? Adam Driver could. Who could accidentally shoot someone in the face and pull off innocent? Well, maybe he'll be a bit more intense, but if you look at all the scenes as Vincent Vega, even the shotgun death part, I think he has this nailed in. And I think going back to the Spike Lee thing from the very beginning, this was it for me. The Spike Lee connection where he's already worked with him in that role. He's been in a duo with him. And I think that's a really important part for me, that he has worked with that direction. And I think, again, not hyping him too much, but he could work with all of the cast members. And I think Vincent Vega's not necessarily the heart and soul of the film, but he's very much that character that when he dies, that's the one you're gutted for, right? You know, the whole toaster dynamic. I think he could pull it off. And I think, personally, he could be far better than Travolta. And Travolta is superb. But I just think going back to the choice of Anya Taylor as well, her scenes with him, they'd both look as uncomfortable as Uma Thurman Travolta did. And I want to see it. I want to see it. The man is a non-stop work machine. I think he's got 3 films out in the next 4 months. He's already filmed 2 films to come out next year. He doesn't stop. He can do comedy. He can do drama. And if you really need the action, we've seen him do that already. So, Adam Driver. That's the last I can say.
I'll let your boner calm down a little bit after Adam Driver after this one. He is an all-rounder. Like, he can do so much. I think it'd be interesting to see Adam Driver play a character like Vincent Vega, who's like so totally strung out all the time. Like, you just have to look at Travolta in that film, and you know, the makeup, the performance. He looks high all the time and kind of out of it a little bit, like a little bit spaced out. So it'd be nice to see Adam Driver bring that to the role. Also, he's got a musical coming out. Apparently, we've heard him sing in Marriage Story. How he is in that musical, I have no idea. Whether there's going to be dancing required in that, who knows? But he's going to have to dance in this film if we are directly rebooting the film. He's Adam Driver. Like everything I've seen him in, even if I don't like the film he's in, Star Wars sequel trilogy, he is by far head and shoulders above everyone else in that film. He's got the dramatic chops for it, and probably 2 Oscar contender films coming out this year alone. So, I think it's a really good choice. It'd be a very different role for him. I know he's played bad guys before.
I love that comment. That's
Listen, get it out the way in episode 1, because it means he's not going to pop up in the next few at least. That was also.
I think we need like a 3-episode allowance before recasting the same person, right? Is that like an unspoken rule? But yeah, Adam Driver. I was actually shocked to see that you picked him, and I clearly should have had the mindset of Carl, knowing that you would probably pick him. But I think that's a good choice. I like Adam Driver anyway.
Yeah, again, Chris, what you said, I think he's one of the stronger aspects of those Star Wars movies, and he has a particular sort of cadence and delivery in them that's fantastic. And when you see him in Marriage Story, it's a serious role, but there's a level of, like you said, George, there's a level of awkwardness to that role. When he cuts his flipping arm open because he doesn't realise he's got, and it's perfectly in line with Travolta as Vincent, shooting somebody in the face by complete sheer accident. So yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful piece of casting. And he's, like you said, he's absolutely got the range to do it. And I think pairing him with Anya as well will be very interesting.
And on a side note, he just needs to be in a Tarantino film. I think me and Chris have said this. Mm-hmm. The guy that played, I think Tarantino could easily write a character for him, and they're both for fun. But I'll leave that for Quentin to do on his final film.
Hennick's sort of like saying what you said earlier as well. Like Driver looks a lot like Vincent. Yeah, definitely in that photo with the two of them together. Yeah. Absolutely. So now we go to one of my Baby Driver links that I referred to earlier. Now, this actor I was tempted to cast as Butch earlier. It was like Butch and Brad Pitt were, Butch and Brad Pitt. The actor I'm casting for Vincent and Brad Pitt were kind of interchangeable for me. Does kind of have a punch drunk look to him a little bit, but I could really see John Bernthal. I played the wrong thing. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I did the same thing. There we go. Sorry. John Bernthal playing the character of John Travolta. Just even in terms of like the comedic chops as well, like he played, it looks like he was almost doing improv against Jonah Hill's character in Wolf of Wall Street, which was some great moments in there. Also, as I mentioned, Baby Driver, a very small role in that film, but he's got the intensity, and I could imagine him playing sort of this hard-boiled gangster. Whether you go with like the whole kind of strung out on drugs thing, or whether you just have him being sort of like a hitman who goes out and does like, horrible things. I could see him, doing this. I think it'd be an interesting pairing with him and Eva Green, but we know that John Bernthal has got the dramatic chops as well. You watch The Punisher, and, he does have that level of empathy to him in that film, although he's the Punisher and he needs no other introduction. There's a lot going on to the character, and he can really delve into a character and show the dramatic chops to it, but he's also got that aspect of comedy to him as well, and this is going to be a pairing thing where once we've seen who we've picked, so sorry for clicking ahead for who you picked as Vincent, but once you see who they're paired with Jules, hopefully it kind of shines through a little bit more. But this was a tough one. As I said, like you've got Bernthal, he's got the physicality and kind of like the face of a boxer, so that's why I was thinking maybe you could play Butch, but I don't know. I think he could surprise everyone if he was cast as a Vincent Vega kind of character.
I really like this pick. I've really liked John since I saw him in, obviously he was in the early seasons of The Walking Dead, and I thought he was really, really understated in that. But yeah, I know it's a really, really solid pick because in that Baby Driver link, he has that sort of gangster sort of hitman sort of thing. I think the line he has at the start of that, he says, if you don't see me again, it means I'm dead. And then he's not in the rest of the film. Yeah. So you just have to assume. But there's something sort of almost Tarantino about that, like the way he would command that scene. I think he's a really underrated actor, and I think physically he's there. He has that. I think maybe he seems a bit more composed than for goodness sake, Travolta. But I think absolutely I could see him being there. I'm really interested now as well. You've picked him to see who your counterpart pick is for Jules. But yeah, no, that's a really, really solid pick. An actor who I've really liked for a long time, and I think, I just wish he was in more stuff.
Mm-hmm. Would he get the long hair?
Oh, I don't know. It's debatable.
Brad Pitt touched me. I think he's massively underrated. Going with what Ryan said, Baby Driver, he was superb. The weird scene, in and out, done. ambiguous ending, and one of the few cast members not to get caught up in stuff in the last couple of years. So fair play to him for that one. But you could see it, couldn't you? It's that showtime dynamic and taking orders from others. I think he'd add something new to it, actually. I think he'd have his own take to Travolta, and I think he could be really interesting with it. And I kind of want to know who you've got him with now, because I think a lot of Vincent Vega's off the page age-wise matches more up to Eva Green as well. And I think it's all about the duos with Vincent Vega. And also, I think because his death's such an understated part that opens the door. Sorry, I'm back. It's when they like open the door and whatnot, and then he gets the shot. And that's such a big part. Can he do the death right? I think he easily could too.
Yeah, and I think going back to the Winston Wolfe thing as well. I remember in the scenes from Wolf of Wall Street with Jonah Hill where Jonah Hill's kind of goading him, and he's like, "Look, I'm at a here. Like, don't push me past this point." And that's exactly what Vincent Vega's character's like. So I think it was that scene that kind of sealed the deal for me with like the comedic stuff. But I guess we move on to the next one, even though I think I got a bit trigger happy, didn't I? But
that's right. I've gone for another Adam. I've gone for Adam Sandler. God bless George for finding a photo of him not wearing shorts. But, no, I just think Adam Sandler, just in terms of everyone knows what he can do comedically, but I think he's proven with Punch Drunk Love and Uncut Gems that if there's a serious role to be done, he can absolutely come in and deliver. And I just think he's such a wild and wacky sort of actor. I wouldn't have guessed that he would do a film like Uncut Gems like in the last few years. So I just think there's just something about Adam Sandler that's funny, and that I think he would bring that sort of comedic element to Vincent Vega, but he can also, he can deliver those sort of more serious notes, and the death scene as well. I think Adam Sandler would play that just stupendously. So I just went for a bit more of an out there pick for this one, because I think that John Travolta was a very out there casting initially in the film. So I thought who would sort of who would be an interesting actor to sort of come in and do something quasi serious yet sort of hilarious at the same time. It's just every time this guy goes to the bathroom, something terrible happens. It's just such an underrated sort of funny role, but again understated with a lot of serious drama like the overdose, and we laugh, but he's killed somebody, and they're all just like, oh god, how are we going to deal with this? And I would just love to see Adam Sandler in that situation. I think he would bring it to just a bonkers level. I think, yeah.
Carl? Sandler's an amazing choice. Underrated serious actor. I love to see what Tarantino can do with him. I love Adam Sandler. Listen, I even like the guy's comedies. I know a lot of people have it in for him. And I think nothing will ever top when he said, if I don't get a nomination for Uncut Gems, I will make one of the worst comedies ever done. And also, he's just a nice guy. He keeps all his mates employed. He makes films with them. He gets them paid well. That's the kind of guy you want to hang out with. And, you mentioned the shorts. A, I want to see him in a suit. B, it means he can also wear the shorts at some point in the film as well. So I am all here for the Adam Sandler train. I'm excited to see what he does next.
I think for me, in terms of his serious roles, I have only seen him in Uncut Gems, really. I think he did, you mentioned another film that he did before that point, which was a dramatic role that he did. But I loved Uncut Gems. It's a film that I have only seen once, but I do keep having the inclination to go back to it. Very kind of, hard-boiled character in that, and the frenetic pace to it, and just how he was non-stop and just kind of, off the hook all the time. Maybe a bit too zany in that role, if you're comparing it to Vincent Vega, but I think he could absolutely do it. I think he'd do it well, and I think that he would have that side to him as well, where he does have that caring side and that nurturing side to him as well in that situation with Amir Wallace when she ODs. And then, some of the outbursts that Vincent Vega has in the film, it's like, I got to stab her 3 times. And it's like, no, just stab. I could imagine some of those quippy bits being quite funny. I like some of his comedies as well. I think Anger Management's probably my favorite, but maybe that's down to a wild card Jack Nicholson in that film. It's great.
Just a quick comment from Carl. He's phenomenal in Rain Over Me, which I've not seen, but I've heard of. And at the very beginning, I could see Chris Pratt playing Vincent Vega, especially the dance scene. I could see, especially if he's got the pairing as well with Jennifer Lawrence. I could see those two as a duo with one another. But that's going to push us up to the last choice. I guess maybe, personally to me, this was the hardest of the entire thing, because I think this is the most iconic character. It's Samuel L. Jackson, right? And no one can be Samuel L. Jackson. Let's make that crystal clear, shall we? No one can do Sam Jackson but Sam Jackson. I've gone for a choice to complete my trio. I don't know if anyone's guessed it by now, but I've had Spike Lee, I've had Adam Driver, and we're going to cap it off with John David Washington.
Oh, nice.
As I said at the very beginning, BlacKkKlansman is a film I love. I don't know if it's in my top 20 of all time, but very much over the last few years, it's probably sat in my top 5 in truth. And, I've spoke about Tenet so much over the last year, but he looks damn good in his suit. I'll give you that. John David Washington, I think, is a superb. I don't want to say up and coming actor. I think he's here to make it mainstream now. I think he's in a film coming out of Christian Bale later this year. He's in the new Russo brothers one. He's in a lot of stuff coming up, and I'm going to make it crystal clear again. No one can do Sam Jackson, but I think there's enough of him to look good in a suit, killing people. And he might not be there shouting wise yet, because no one is again going to do Sam Jackson, but I'm more picking this because I want the reunion from BlacKkKlansman. That's been my very core from the beginning of this. Was the moment I thought about Spike Lee as director, I was like, it's got to be Driver and John David Washington, and their chemistry with each other in that film is what makes it to me. How they work with one another, and the other thing, right? Sam Jackson's cool. He can shout, he can swear, he can do whatever, but the main thing is he's just really cool in the film. John David Washington has been cool in everything. He's the coolest person in Tenet. He even outdoes Rob Pattinson. He's amazing in BlacKkKlansman. I'd even say we can give him a fake wig as well if we want to really go there. He's won it before. So John David Washington hype train is on for me, I think. And to me, it's more rounding off my cast. It's that BlacKkKlansman inspired stuff. So quite cheaty, I know, but I'm not going to try and get another angry shouting man because no one's going to beat Sam Jackson. I've said that way too many times. Chris?
And Jules is a character who is, very well, he goes through a clear character progression as the film goes, probably the most visible one out of all the characters in Pulp Fiction, really. How he's such a completely different character at the end of that film. He still commands the scene, he still commands his hub that he's in, whether it be going out to a mission to whack someone, or whether it's commanding that room to diffuse the situation of what's going on at the cafe. So you need an actor that can really do too, whether it be the shouty stuff or the calm stuff. And I think John David Washington's a fantastic choice. You see him in like the shouty stuff in some of the more intense scenes in BlacKkKlansman, or even Malcolm and Marie recently, where it's very heightened emotional film all the way through that. And he can snap from those dramatic monologues, emotional monologues, and then can just go, angered and completely riled up. So, no, I think that's a great choice. And I think you need an actor that can do that. And I think Washington's one of those actors now that, similar to a lot of actors that we've mentioned now, sort of like recent up and coming actors, I think their careers are just going to, skyrocket and, improve as all the films come out.
Yeah, I mean I think that rounds off your casting really nicely, the connections that are already established with the other cast members and who you've got directing. I mean, his performance in BlacKkKlansman is utterly fantastic, and he has that Samuel L. Jackson cool factor. I know you keep saying no one can replace Samuel L. Jackson in that role, but damn, he'd be such a fantastic person to take up that mantle. He's just such a his role in BlacKkKlansman, he does sort of have that sort of higher anger sort of scene, but the scenes where he's just talking on the phone and stuff like that, I can see him absolutely nailing the talky scenes, like the quarter pounder or the Royale with cheese scene and stuff like that. I can just see him absolutely knocking it out of the park with those. Yeah, absolutely.
We've got a comment from Carl, a bit left field, but what about Will Smith? Will Smith can have the dramatic chops, earlier films he's done, like Ali, which was a great film, which he was in. He's done countless other stuff as well. I forget what he's done, but I think he could do
Jaden.
Oh God, no, Jaden. Keep Jaden well out of my Pulp Fiction reboot. Thank you very much. And someone also agrees, Hennick agrees that he was very suave in Tenet, which he absolutely was.
That maroon suit, not many people can pull that off. He can.
I think it's just him and Spike Lee, actually, who could probably do that.
Actually, yes, Spike Lee could. No, sorry, of course he could. Yeah, Spike Lee and Purple was just like a duo that no one else can do as well. Mm-hmm. But that's John David Washington for me. Chris.
Yeah, so I guess this is also going to complete. I can't remember if it's a trilogy now of all the people I've cast. It's going to complete my Baby Driver links. I've gone for Jamie Foxx in this role. He was absolutely terrifying in Baby Driver in all the right ways. I keep saying you hang on his every word, but you were terrified of him. He was so unpredictable, and that's the kind of actor I think you need. And going back to some of those calmer moments as well, you have Django Unchained, which even though that was an all-out revenge film, he was quite an understated character in that compared to all the sort of like the colourful characters around him and wacky characters that surrounded the rest of the film. I've never seen it, but obviously he's done serious stuff with the likes of Ray earlier in his career, and he has done gangster stuff as well. I know he was in the remake of Miami Vice, I think, with Colin Farrell, if I remember rightly. I've never seen that film either, but I know he can do that too. This choice kind of just hung on Baby Driver for me, in all honesty, which I thought he was absolutely tremendous in. It's kind of reuniting him and John Bernthal in a way, although I know that they weren't on camera together, but they obviously featured in the same film together. I can just picture the two of them together, and I think the two would work off each other very, very well. Jamie Foxx able to bring that emotional core to it and still be very commanding of the scene. When that guy talks, like, oh boy, like if he held a gun to, if he started quoting Bible scripture to me, and I'd be terrified. And then at the very end of the film, obviously, I think I can imagine that final conversation that he has with Tim Roth, where it's a very understated tone, and he's again reciting the Bible scripture in a very different way. And I think that Jamie Foxx could bring that full circle from the very different character that Jules is at the beginning of the film to the very end.
Yeah, I mean that's such a good pick. He almost replaces John Berthnall's character in Baby Driver, doesn't he? Yeah. Like John Berthnall doesn't come back, and then they've got this guy in, and you think John Berthnall's kind of a bit loose and unhinged, and Jamie Foxx is absolutely terrifying. And I think he would absolutely nail both ends of the spectrum for what Samuel L. Jackson had to do for that film. The sort of talking about burgers and then talking about icing somebody. I think he'd be terrifying. Yet I think he'd still have that sort of, because when you watch the film, Samuel L. Jackson's character, Jules, he's the character you want to come out of it. Do you know what I mean? Unscathed, probably. I don't know how you guys view the film, but when you watch it, he's the he's sort of searching for redemption when he's talking about how he is. So I think, Jamie Foxx would be a really, really good pick for that.
I could see him with the bad motherfucker wallet as well. Like, I don't think not many people can also pull off, but I don't want to say he's underrated, but he's certainly not hit the heights I think people are aware he can do. I think he's fantastic. I think when he has that intensity, but he has a sort of electric. Oh god, that's terrible. Not an electro pun, but he's got this sort of charisma that he brings into the roles. That it's not just cool, but there's something about the intensity with it being cool that he can do, and that's what makes him so unpredictable. And I think that's a very rare sort of charm where not many people can do it. And I'd be down to see him, and I think he's great. Also, the John Bernthal pairing, I'd absolutely love. I think those two together, like, could you imagine like the whole scene? The Do You Speak English? Imagine those two just storming a room you're in.
Right.
Like, you would shit yourself. You ain't making out of that alive. I'll tell you that straight away. But I absolutely love him.
He's worked as well. I know, going back to sort of Heat, what we were saying earlier, with Michael Mann, he directed Collateral, and Jamie Foxx was phenomenal opposite Tom Cruise in Collateral as well. So he can do those sort of darker, noir-y kind of elements really well.
Carl's just said someone should use deepfake to see how these actors would look in the film. Hey, if any of you guys want to get on that, then be my guest. I don't think we have the time or resources to get that looking good, but it'd be interesting. There's a lot of interesting choices tonight. I think we've done really well on this one, actually. All three of these films are films that I want to see.
Definitely. We've got one more from Ryan, which then we'll cap off and go through our cast, but I'm excited for this one.
Oh yeah, okay. I've gone for Donald Glover, who is an actor I have loved for such a long time. I just think, look at that photo. Look at him. He's so fucking cool. I love him. He's brilliant. I think the first thing I saw him in was Community, which is sort of a meta sort of comedy, and there are some really sort of serious sort of scenes in that, but also the way he has a cadence to him, and he brings, the sort of hilarity. I think at one point they just stopped writing lines for him, and he started improvising stuff because he writes stand-up and all sorts as well. But I think Samuel L. Jackson's performance is the defining performance of this film. And I just think Donald Glover, if given the opportunity, I think he can do something like that. I don't think he's maybe done anything like that in his current filmography, perhaps. But I think in terms of acting, I think he could bring a level. He has that sort of sophisticated, cool, but, he's sort of still an everyman, which is sort of what Samuel L. Jackson brings to Pulp Fiction. And I think, again, him and Adam Sandler sort of storming a room. I think it'd probably be more hilarious than perhaps the original, but I still think it would be crazy. I just think it would sort of bring a really niche perspective onto the dynamic between those characters.
Listen, Donald Glover is one of my, not even just favorite actors, favorite musicians. I can say my My music knowledge is pathetic, but Childish Gambino, I should have seen live, but I missed it because of work reasons and dodgy holiday stuff. But I absolutely love him in everything he's in. Even The Lion King, I didn't mind him in that. I think it was the natural choice to play Simba, but we'll not talk about that. But he is superb in everything he's in, and I think he's got the coolness, he's got the intensity, and you see. I know it's only a music video, but even with the American one, it's when he's got the machine guns. It's that intensity out of nowhere.
Part of the consideration for it, just that music video alone, he brings that sort of maybe not. He's not it's super. But it's not played to be super violent because of the message of the thing. It's supposed to be more. Look what's happening. It's a bit mundane, and we're just walking by it. But yeah, I think he brings something unique to that.
Yeah, and I think like the age difference between the two actors you've cast as well. I think with the change where you'd have Glover being a lot younger compared to Adam Sandler, I think that would also play into why he has that change at the end. Maybe Sandler could view him as, he's this young upstart. I'm kind of teaching him the ropes, and I've been in this game a lot longer than this kid has. Like, what does he know about, giving it up and sort of walking the earth? So I think, intentionally or unintentionally, that could be pretty cool as well, having them be such completely different ages. Because I think that Samuel Jackson was older, wasn't he, than Travolta? By a good few years, I think, out of the two.
I think mentally he's in his 40s in Pulp Fiction, which is ridiculous because he looks like he's in his 50s now. The man doesn't age, but yeah, I think he was a bit older than John Travolta. I think that's the big thing with it. It was John Travolta's resurgence, but being with Sam Jackson, and I think we'd seen him in True Romance, he'd been in Jurassic Park, Coming to America, a couple of other things, but this was it. This is what made Sam Jackson the Sam Jackson we all know. That I think he's been over 150 films now, and I don't think all of that's possible without Pulp Fiction.
Definitely. I think that takes us home, doesn't it? We're going to do a quick blast through the full cast now. Prepare your popcorn. Maybe in 10, 20 years or so, you might see some of these reboots. Who knows? But yeah, I think if we go in order again. So, George, if you want to sort of do like a clean sweep of your full cast.
Yeah, definitely. So once more, we've got Rob Pattinson as Pumpkin, Maya Hawke as Honey Bunny, Christine Bale as Captain Coons. Oh my God, how have I forgotten? Alexandra Daddario as Fabienne, Michael B. Jordan as Butch, Daniel Kaluuya as Macias Wallace, Anya Taylor-Johnson as Mia Wallace, Gary Oldman as Winston Wolfe, Adam Driver, Vincent Vega, Jules Winfield, played by John David Washington, and of course, Spotty directing. When you see it as a group, I think that's where you notice the pairings more. That's when stuff starts to click. It's here's Vincent Vega and Jules Winfield, here's Pumpkin and Honey Bunny together. And I think that's what I think I took into it, was seeing the group pictures of them. So that's my cast, of course, Spike Lee helming it. Look at that purple suit. What a man.
Nice. I don't think there's any purple suits in my cast list, unfortunately. But so for Pumpkin, I've got Tom Hiddleston, Honey Bunny, Scarlett Johansson, Captain Coons, Robert De Niro, Fabienne, Marion Cotillard, Butch, we've got the one and only Brad Pitt, Marcellus Wallace is Mahershala Ali, Mia Wallace, Eva Green, Winston Wolfe, Jack Nicholson, Vincent Vega, John Bernthal, Jules Winfield, Jamie Foxx, and director, or in my case, I guess directors, I've got the Coen brothers. All of these are going to be on our social medias, by the way. We're going to put them up as a full cast list as well.
Definitely. And Ryan, we've got yours on the screen as well.
Oh, yeah, sure. So I had Pumpkin, I had John Hamm, Honey Bunny, I had Winona Ryder, Captain Coons, I had Matthew McConaughey, Fabienne, I had Jessica Parr, Butch was Aaron Paul, Wallace was Giancarlo Esposito, Mia Wallace was Amanda Seyfried, Winston Wolfe was Al Pacino, Vince Vega's Adam Sandler, Jules Winfield is Donald Glover, and then my director was Vince Gilligan.
Definitely. So that rounds it out. We're almost as long as the film, which is mad. Again, this is the first episode. It's not felt as long as it's been. I'm not going to lie. I've had an absolute blast listening to your guys' picks, the sort of conversation we've had about them. And again, this is the first episode. So everyone watching at home, let us know your thoughts on not just Pulp Fiction, but on our choices on the series. This is the first episode. Not all of them are going to be ensemble cast as well. That are this iconic. They're not all going to be 2.5 hours long, but we appreciate everyone that's been watching along with this site. So do share it, comment your thoughts, hit that like button. It does help. And in case you want to know what else might be sort of popping up in the future, as we mentioned, the goal for this is to get on our letterbox. So we have a list on our account that you can see right here that has 100 films none of us will ever want to see get rebooted. And if the randomizer picks them, they're the ones that we're going to be talking about next time. So get on letterboxd.com/cinemasavvy, have a look at that list. We're obviously going to update it, that's James Bond. We're going to update it to reflect, of course, Pulp Fiction being gone. So that will get sorted out in the future. But, it could be a classic film, it could be a trilogy, could even be a franchise, or in the case of James Bond, it could be us doing our own sort of adventure. So there's a lot of potential with this. We don't know the structure yet. The randomizer will decide our fate. So anything could be picked at any time. We literally don't know. So I guess that's the premise of the show. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add.
I was just going to say, yeah, so we're still kind of feeling this out at the moment. As we mentioned, this is our first episode on this, so, this is going to develop. We want to hear your guys' input as well, what you like about the show, if you think there's something we can improve, and, please do let us know. Comment below if you do like it. And as, George mentioned with the letterbox, that is sort of like intrinsic to this show, where you can stay up to date with all the films that are out there as well. Maybe you can suggest some films to us that can be added to that 100 list. And of course, we want you to send in your full cast list as well. It doesn't have to be a graphic like that. You can just type it out for either all of or just some of the characters. Obviously, you can do that on Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy. As we mentioned with Letterboxd, that's letterboxd.com/Cinema Savvy. And if you'd like to pick up any merch as well, we've got the TeePublic link in the description down below, where you can feel free to browse some of the merch that we've got on offer. I guess we need to say a big thank you as well to Ryan for jumping on. It was the Pulp Fiction poster from back in the day that sealed the deal, my friend. We had to get you on for it. So I know this has been quite a long show, but we do appreciate you taking time and jumping on with us today for the first episode of Reboots from Hell.
Definitely. So like I said, once again, everyone, thanks for watching. And next time we've got an episode, that'll be on our social medias, and we'll have details as soon as we can. So keep an eye on them, follow us on there, and thank